Chapter 43-44. Not good. The two old Confucian cultivators who were facing Zhai Xingzi were shocked when they saw the starlight. Although they knew that Zhai Xingzi could use the power of the stars and moon in the Thousand Demons sacred realm, which was especially favored by the power of the stars and moon, it wasn't easy to deal with. The two of them had taken the initiative by sneak attacking Zhai Xingzi and sealed the space around him, but they still underestimated Zhai Xingzi's strength. They didn't expect Zhai Xingzi to break through their joint attack. Buzz buzz. The stars above Zhai Xingzi's had expanded wildly. When the power of the stars and moon entered Zhai Xingzi's body, his body also let out a roar and expanded rapidly. Kill. The two old Confucian cultivators looked at each other, and killing intent suddenly appeared in their eyes. They each opened their mouths, and two streams of sword light with green light shot towards Zhai Xingzi's chest and back respectively. Boom! The two sword waves were extremely sharp. Wherever they went, whether it was the Great Qi Pillar or the Starlight Pillar, they were all easily destroyed. In just an instant, they pierced into the starlight protecting Zhai Xingzi's body. Break. Seeing the sword light enter his body, Zhai Xingzi sneered. He didn't care about the sword light at all. Instead, he chanted and pointed his finger. Pung! The spinning stars in the sky suddenly exploded, and an almost oval black hole appeared in the middle of the stars. After the stars exploded, they turned into star shatter. However, this star fragment was different from the life treasure starfall that Zhai Xingzi had used before. This star fragment was like a starry sky. Within it, there were dozens of stars of different sizes. Moreover, each star was emitting a different brilliance and fluctuation. These dozens of stars were connected by a mysterious fluctuation. It was likely that other than Zhai Xingzi, no one else would be able to sense these fluctuations. At this moment, after the star fragment exploded, it carried the spatial power of the black hole and the power of the light beam of the moon and stars as it crazily smashed towards the two Confucian cultivators. The distorted space was just like Zhai Xingzi's distorted mood. Boom boom. The star shatterer was even faster than a meteor. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, it had already smashed into the two secondary bodies of the Confucian cultivators. An incessant rumbling sound suddenly resounded as the secondary bodies of the two Confucian cultivators were torn apart by the star shatter. Not only did the vast energy pillar collapse, but even blood splashed out. Ka ka ka. At this point, even the starlight that had been resisting the two waves of swords could not hold on any longer. The nascent soul avatar that was hundreds of feet tall began to crack from the inside out. Pieces of starlight were quickly annihilated by the wind. Roar! Zhai Xingzi's torn emperor's outfit was revealed at the spot where the star brilliance had been destroyed. There were bloodstains on the emperor's outfit, but Zhai Xingzi's eyes were wide open. How could he care about his injuries? He raised his head and roared. Like a trapped beast, his body glowed with starlight again. He was ready to pounce on the defensive formation that trapped Wuxia. Under the scheme of the Confucian cultivator, Zhai Xingzi was injured right from the start. Although it was because Wuxia was trapped and he was a little anxious, in the end, it was because the Confucian cultivator who ambushed him was stronger. If Zhai Xingzi was in such a state, how much better could Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong be? The two of them were some distance behind Zhai Xingzi. When the dozens of Confucian cultivators rushed out, they were also some distance away from the two of them. Seeing the Confucian cultivator, who was at the upper 5th grade of essence force, appear in the light shadow, how could they dare to be careless? One by one, they activated their magic power and revealed their nascent soul avatar. Zhang Daoran opened his mouth and a snowflake-shaped magic treasure rushed into the sky. This magic treasure was called Drifting Snow. He obtained it from Tsang Longzi's cave. After more than 200 years of sacrificial refining, it really made him like a tiger that had grown wings. When the magic treasure Drifting Snow landed in midair, the nearby space was immediately frozen. The ice shards that were as thin as hair were like wrinkles of time. In the blink of an eye, they covered 100 feet area. Moreover, with Zhang Daoran's activation, they quickly pounced on the Confucian cultivator, who was not far away. Ka, ka, ka. Layers of inscriptions flew out at this time and collided with the ice shards. There was a low sound of ice cracking. The space within 100 feet shook rapidly. It was like a battle between wind and snow. The space within 100 feet was dark. Huff, huff. In just a few breaths, thousands of small flames were born in the dark space. These flames were crimson in color. Among the crimson flames, strands of inscriptions jumped lively. In the core of each flame, there was a crimson heart shape that was slowly beating. Zhang Daoran, you're just SOO. Opposite Zhang Daoran, the Confucian cultivator who held the Ming Lu chain laughed arrogantly. On his smiling face, crimson flames flashed in his eyes. Is that so? Zhang Daoran was not angry. He only responded faintly. Then he opened his mouth. Pooh. A light blue crystal light as thick as a thumb fell into the drifting snow. Wung. The drifting snow let out a roar. Thousands of phantoms flew out from the drifting snow and quickly fell into the space within 1,000 feet. The heaven-earth origin energy within a dozen miles also turned into a hurricane and fell into the thousands of phantoms. Swish, swish, swish. The space within 1,000 feet emitted the sound of wind. Layers of light appeared out of thin air. Within the light, pieces of jade-like ice crystals condensed from the void. Under the cover of the ice crystals, not only was the Ming Lu chain frozen, even the crimson flames were frozen into ice flowers, unable to move. Even the brows of the old man in scholarly robes were quickly covered in a layer of frost. Not good. Seeing how powerful Zhang Daoran's magic treasure was, the Confucian cultivator was shocked. He hurriedly sent a voice transmission. Senior brother, come help me. Boom. Everything had been planned. Before the Confucian cultivator's cry for help could be heard, the other Confucian cultivator raised his hand and slapped the top of his head. A three-colored true energy soared into the sky and condensed into a three-colored fire crow in the air. It flew toward Zhang Daoran's drifting snow. Wherever the fire crow went, the space was burned until it was distorted. The space frozen by the drifting snow was also instantly shattered. Damn it! Zhang Daoran cursed under his breath. He wanted to activate Snowdrift again. Boom! The crimson flame that had just been suppressed by the ice moved again. Inch by inch, the space was burned by the flame until it collapsed. It quickly pounced towards Zhang Daoran. The fire crow that had broken through the seal earlier was even more unforgiving. It pounced out with flames to burn the Dharma treasure, Snowdrift. Zhang Daoran was in an awkward situation where he was attacked from both sides. Sun Kong was not much stronger. His magic treasure, Howling Heaven, was a fist-shaped object. Howling Heaven's body was covered with holes of different sizes. Under the stimulation of magic power, not only did each hole emit a strange sound, but it could also produce wind blades comparable to flying swords. Where the wind blades landed, they cut the Ming Lu chain that was attacking Sun Kong into pieces. The strange sound had a soul-stirring effect. The two Confucian cultivators besieging Sun Kong used a secret technique, but the sound still penetrated their protective true energy and entered their bodies. Fall. At this time, the two old Confucian cultivators besieging Sun Kong looked at each other and chanted incantations at the same time. They opened their mouths, and two shining tokens flew into the air. The tokens were black and yellow in color. As soon as they fell into the air, they immediately produced many inscriptions. The inscriptions roared, and an aura filled with the will of heaven and earth came out of the inscriptions and quickly shrouded the space around them. The inscriptions intertwined like tentacles, and the two talismans fell from the sky like mountains, as if they were going to suppress Venerable Master Sun Kong. The Xianhuang token. Master Sun Kong was originally a bit puzzled, but when he saw the two talismans with the will of heaven and earth seal the space around him, the true essence around him showed signs of condensing under this will. He suddenly realized something and cried out in shock, "Why are you all here?" Sun Kong and the other three had been in the Thousand Demons sacred realm. Like Shui Mingzi and Ao Zhantian, they were often attacked by demons. Although they had done enough homework to deal with demons and beasts, they had never thought that they would be attacked by Confucian cultivators in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, let alone that they were masters of the Xianhuang token. Haha. When the two old men saw that Sun Kong recognized the Xianhuang token, they laughed proudly and shouted, "How dare you! You actually cultivated to the 5th level of origin energy without permission from the Immortal Palace. Since you have violated the rules of the Immortal Palace, you will naturally be punished. Now that you are listed on the Xian ranking, not to mention the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, even if you run to the ends of the earth, I, the Xianhuang token, will take your heads in accordance with the immortal law." Damn it, damn it! Exalted Sun Kong roared furiously. At this moment, how could he not understand that the dark yellow token had surely obtained the news that Xiaohua had been suppressed, and that was why it had intercepted and killed them on the way to Baiqingyu? Amidst his rage, Venerable Master Sun Kong raised his gaze and saw that besides the 6 Confucian cultivators that were besieging them, there were almost 10 other Confucian cultivators that were similarly at the upper 5th grade of origin energy that had already activated the chains of inscription to seal off an area of 50 kilometers around them. Once this seal was completed, not to mention the 4 of them, even if there were 4 more, it would still be impossible for them to escape from the seal. What should we do? Sun Kong was a little anxious for a moment. He thought of Xiaohua, whom he had not seen for more than 200 years, and thought to himself, perhaps we only have a chance of survival if Daoist Xiao is here? After a moment, Sun Kong shook his head again. He knew very well that Xiaohua had been suppressed by Qingyu's Demon King, so it was impossible for him to appear here. "I'm afraid we can only rely on ourselves." Sun Kong gritted his teeth and waved his sleeve. The demon beast Chongqing charged out from his Daoist robe. Boom.
Boom. Boom.
At this critical moment, a thunderous roar suddenly came from below them. 3 thumb-sized brilliant light spots appeared from the chains of inscription that had trapped Wuxia Chronicles first. The moment these light spots appeared, they immediately transformed into a vortex. Not only did all the light spots fall into it, but even the mighty pillars of energy that fell into the chains of inscription like raindrops also charged into it. The vortexes took shape in just a moment. They were like 3 full moons, and a cold light instantly covered an area of 3,000 meters. Then, 3 soul-destroying auras shot out from the vortexes of light, instantly locking onto the 3 Confucian cultivators who were surrounding Zhai Xingzi, Zhang Daoran, and Sun Kong. Chapter 43-45. Ah! Shoot! Shoot the moon bow! The 3 Confucian cultivators turned pale with fright. Although they didn't know what this aura was, that cold brilliance had already frozen their blood. They didn't dare to be careless and hurriedly activated their sub-bodies. The hands of the sub-bodies fell towards the light spots from 3 different directions, wanting to destroy them before the light spots could form. Whoosh! Like the sound of a bow, the 3 vortexes of light were instantly annihilated. 3 light arrows condensed from the noble chi flew out from the vortexes. These light arrows were dark blue and contained thousands of crystal lights. The sparkling crystal lights revealed a powerful star power and pierced straight into the 3 big hands. Wherever the light arrows passed, whether it was the Ming Lu chains or the noble chi pillars, they were all torn apart. The seal that trapped Wuxia earlier had a huge opening now. Wuxia, who was dressed in purple, revealed her valiant visage. That visage held a huge bow that was completely dark green in her hands. The light arrows were like lightning and instantly pierced into the hands of the 3 sub-bodies. The hands of the 3 upper 5th grade Confucian cultivators couldn't withstand a single blow and instantly collapsed. Following the collapse of the hands, the dazzling light arrows shot into the sub-bodies of the 3 Confucian cultivators at an angle. What was special was that the angles of the 3 light arrows were extremely tricky. They covered the sub-bodies of the 6 Confucian cultivators. Not good. The 3 sub-bodies of the 3 Confucian cultivators collapsed. As they screamed, they hurriedly dodged. The other 3 Confucian cultivators were also shocked. They couldn't care less about attacking the 3 Taoist cultivators and also dodged. However, they were still a bit too slow. Although the light arrows didn't hit their vital points, the starlight was so bright that just by sweeping past the 6 sub-bodies, the sub-bodies condensed from noble chi immediately collapsed. The boundless power of the stars and moon wreaked havoc in the sub-bodies when they had just dodged. Wuxia, who was sealed by the Minglu chains, turned into a ray of light and flew out. When she pulled Zhai Xingzi's hands, Zhai Xingzi shouted, "Let's go." The two of them followed the 3 light arrows to the left and right as they charged toward the defensive formation that had yet to be completely sealed. Seeing the two of them move, Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong naturally did not hesitate. The two of them also roared. One of them urged drifting snow, while the other urged howling sky. They brought Changgung and teleported behind the light arrow. Wuxia's counterattack was too sudden. The dozens of Xianhuang token cultivators who were trying to kill the 4 of them did not expect it at all. It was not until the 3 light arrows landed and tore apart the defense formation that these Xianhuang token cultivators came to their senses and hurriedly surrounded them. However, they were still too late. When the light arrow was destroyed, Zhai Xingzi and the others also disappeared outside the defensive formation. When they chased out of the defensive formation, they could only see the backs of the 4 people flying away in the purple sky. Humph. The Xianhuang token cultivator, who was flying at the front, snorted coldly as he watched the 4 of them fly further and further away. He sneered, "I didn't expect the little girl from the Wuxia family to have the shoot the moon bow. This really caught me off guard. I was lucky to have let them escape today, but it won't be easy to ambush them in the future." "My lord." The Xianhuang token cultivator, who was injured by the shoot the moon bow, slowly flew over. His face was filled with lingering fear as he whispered, "The shoot the moon bow is an ancient Taoist magic treasure. It's extremely powerful. Wuxia is only at the lower middle of the 5th level of origin energy, but she almost killed the 6 of us with it. I don't know if Wuxia got the shoot the moon bow herself, or if the Wuxia family."
Hee.
The Xianhuang token cultivator at the front sneered and replied, "The Wuxia family head is not strict with her subordinates. Her son actually colluded with the Taoist rebels. Wuxia is only a female cultivator at the 5th level of origin energy. How could she have the power to get the shoot the moon bow? This must be the Wuxia family head's intention. Quickly report to the token master that the Wuxia family head has ulterior motives. Please make a decision." "Yes." The Xianhuang token cultivator nodded fiercely. "This subordinate will report to the token master right away." The other Xianhuang token cultivators also flew over and asked, "My lord, should we still chase?" "Chase." The Xianhuang token cultivator leader answered without hesitation, "Our mission in the 1,000 Demon Sacred Realm is to kill these Taoist rebels who dare to break the rules of the Immortal Palace and whose strength exceeds the limit and don't go to the Prung Lai Immortal Realm. With Xiao Hua as bait, they will definitely take the bait. Even if we don't kill them today, as long as they rush to buy Qingyu, they will eventually fall into the hands of the Xianhuang token one day." "Yes." The Xianhuang token cultivators answered in unison. They each transformed into rainbows and chased in the direction of Zhai Xingzi and the others. In the wind behind them, layers of purple were still enchanting. Zhai Xingzi and the others naturally couldn't escape in one direction. After flying for a while and releasing their divine perception to investigate, they immediately turned around and flew in another direction. After another hour, Zhai Xingzi felt that the soft blade in his hand was extremely cold. He hurriedly looked around and landed in a forest of giant trees. Sun Kong Shangren and Zhang Daoran also landed. Before they could stabilize themselves, Zhang Daoran took out a formation map from his chest. As he rubbed his hands together, several rays of crystal light fell into the formation map. That formation map landed in the forest of giant trees. Thousands of thin ice strands extended out from the forest of giant trees, shooting straight into the air and enveloping an area of several kilometers. When the ice strands fell from the air, all of the ice strands disappeared. The forest of giant trees was still the same forest of giant trees, but Sun Kong Shangren and the others had disappeared. Zhai Xingzi ignored Zhang Daoran's formation. Instead, He looked worriedly at Gusichiodi, whose body was trembling slightly and whose face was ashen. He asked worriedly, "Can you still hold on?" "I'm fine, Xingzi." As Gusichiodi spoke, several strands of frost appeared between her brows. This frost landed on Gusichiodi's beautiful brows, causing Zhai Xingzi's heart to ache. "Qiu'er, you're old." As Zhai Xingzi spoke, he lifted his hand to wipe away the frost. However, when his fingers touched the frost, an extremely cold aura immediately crashed into his fingers. A patch of starlight instantly appeared in his palm. Shooting Moon Bao. Zhai Xingzi wanted to say something, but he stopped himself just as the words reached his mouth. Zhai Xingzi, Zhang Daoran, who had finished setting up the formation, flew over. He lifted his hand and took out a fiery red pill from his chest. He passed it to Zhai Xingzi and said, "This is the scarlet flame pill that I refined. Let Chiodi consume it first."
All right.
Zhai Xingzi received the pill. As he looked at Gusichiodi, whose face was becoming increasingly cold, he forced a smile and said, "Qiu'er, open your mouth." Yes, Gusichiodi's eyes were a little blurry. She opened her mouth with great difficulty. When Zhai Xingzi placed the medicinal pill into Gusichiodi's cherry mouth, a fiery red color visible to the naked eye instantly appeared on Gusichiodi's neck and spread in all directions. In an instant, the frost that had formed between her brows began to melt. "Zhai Xingzi, let me rest for a moment." Gusichiodi struggled to get up from Zhai Xingzi's embrace. How did she look like a level 5 Essence Energy Grandmaster? All right. Zhai Xingzi hurriedly helped Gusichiodi sit down. When Gusichiodi opened her mouth, a stream of Essence Energy gushed out. It slowly floated in the air and landed on her forehead. Only then did Zhai Xingzi relax. He looked up at Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong not far away and flew over. I really didn't expect this." Before Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong could speak, Zhai Xingzi spoke first. The Immortal Palace actually extended their hands into the Thousand Beast Sacred Realm. Zhang Daoran looked at Sun Kong. The two seemed to have already discussed something via voice transmission. They had a tacit understanding and didn't speak. Zhai Xingzi bit his lips. He was also a little hesitant. He only said this one sentence and didn't say anything else. After 5 minutes of silence, Sun Kong looked at Gusichiodi in the distance and asked, "Immortal friend Gusu, how are your injuries?" "Since entering the Thousand Beasts Sacred Realm, this is already the 3rd time I've forcefully drawn the Shoot the Moon Bao." Before Zhai Xingzi spoke, Zhang Daoran actually spoke. The Shoot the Moon Bao is our Taoism's primordial magic treasure. Without a matching heart sutra and activation technique, forcefully drawing the bao will injure the heart meridian. Although Immortal Friend Gusu is a level 5 Essence Energy Grandmaster, she cultivates the essence energy of Confucian cultivators and not the meridians of our Taoism. Now, I'm afraid her heart meridian has already been injured. This old man has already treated saving Xiao Hua as an impossible mission. Sun Kong glanced at Zhai Xingzi, whose expression changed slightly, and sighed. But I still didn't expect that saving Xiao Hua would be so complicated. Although we don't understand why Xiao Hua was suppressed in by Qingyu, the general reason is that he offended the Demon King. If we rush to that place, we might be able to persuade the demons, or we might be able to use force to rescue Xiao Hua. Zhang Daoran said meaningfully. But the Thousand Beasts Sacred Realm is so dangerous. Even with our level 5 essence energy cultivation, we still encountered danger several times. If not for Immortal Friend Gusu risking her life to activate the Shoot the Moon Bao 3 times, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to reach this place. And this place is still very far from Bai Qingyu. It's not just the distance. Sun Kong continued. The situation is also complicated. Perhaps Xiao Hua being suppressed by Bai Qingyu's Demon King isn't as simple as we thought. Let's not talk about why Xiao Hua was suppressed by Bai Qingyu's Demon King. Just by looking at the Xianhuang token lying in ambush here, we can see that they're planning to eliminate us in one fell swoop. Zhai Xingzi finally spoke. Presumably, the Immortal Palace already knows about our relationship with Xiao Hua. Since they couldn't find any traces of us in the hidden Immortal Continent, they might as well set up an ambush in the thousand-beast sacred realm. Moreover, according to what I know, the three of us aren't the only ones who have an extremely good relationship with Xiao Hua. Back then, there were many who received Xiao Hua's favor on Yaotai Mountain. The Xianhuang token must have also sent many Xianhuang token Confucian cultivators to intercept and kill those nascent soul cultivators, right? With the Immortal Palace taking action, Sun Kong looked at Zhai Xingzi and said very seriously, "Our trip to the Thousand Beasts Sacred Realm isn't as simple as saving Xiao Hua. Therefore, Daoist Zhai Xingzi, it's inconvenient for you to bring immortal friend Gusu along, right?" Chapter 43-46. In my opinion, since Lady Gusu is already injured, why don't you bring her back temporarily? Or find a secret place? Zhang Daoran took the opportunity to persuade him. Unfortunately, before Zhang Daoran could finish, Zhai Xingzi cut him off. "No, that's impossible. Sai, why do you have to do this?" Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong sighed at the same time. Evidently, they weren't surprised by Zhai Xingzi's answer. "Xiao Hua has saved this old man's life. No, all of us," Zhai Xingzi replied calmly. "Furthermore, if it weren't for Xiao Hua, we wouldn't have been able to enter Songlongzi's cave abode, and we wouldn't have been able to enter the out-of-aperture stage so easily. In fact, all of this is secondary in my heart. What I value is Xiao Hua's trust in me. It's undeniable that Xiao Hua is the most important reason why the three of us can be so close to each other. If not for Xiao Hua's unwillingness, the four of us would have become sworn brothers long ago. Although we haven't become sworn brothers in my eyes, the two of you and him are already my brothers. I'm willing to sacrifice my life for all of you." Zhai Xingzi turned to look at Gusichiodi, who was recuperating, and said, "There's a saying in the secular world, brothers are like limbs, while women are like clothes. Qiu'er is my lover, so I can't really treat her like clothes and throw her away. However, to save Xiao Hua, I'm willing to follow the two of you to Bai Qingyu." "Humph." Gusichiodi's cold voice sounded. "Who dares to leave me here?" "Qiu'er." A hint of awkwardness appeared on Zhai Xingzi's face. However, he still said resolutely, "Your injuries have worsened. It's really not suitable for you to head to Bai Qingyu. You should rest here. After we save Xiao Hua." "Bullshit." Gusichiodi had already finished recuperating. She floated up and looked at Zhai Xingzi with bright eyes. "Xingzi, do you remember what we said on Heartbreak Mountain?" Zhai Xingzi's gaze was a little distant, as if he didn't dare to look into Gusichiodi's eyes. "You know that it's a dead end. Why did you go and leave me alone in this world? You clearly know that after you leave, you won't be able to come back. Why do you have to leave me with loneliness? How can I live without you?" Gusichiodi said word by word, "When we left Broken Heart Mountain, we promised to live and die together, never to be separated again. Have you forgotten?" "Xingzi, do you know why I pulled the Shoot the Moon bow without hesitation? Do you know why I'm not afraid of the backlash from the Shoot the Moon bow? Because ever since I stepped into the Thousand Demons sacred realm with you, I never planned to return alive." Sigh. Zhai Xingzi sighed. He couldn't say anything. He reached out and hugged Gusichiodi. Only the warmth in his arms answered Gusichiodi's question. Sun Kong and Zhang Daoran glanced at each other before they tactfully moved to one side. After a while, Zhai Xingzi opened his mouth and said, "Qiu'er, it's been hard on you. Hee, there's nothing to be sad about." Gusichiodi smiled and said, "Xiao Hua can be considered our matchmaker. Back then, I wanted to be a matchmaker to return this favor. However, that little girl, Exian, doesn't know what's good for her. There's nothing I can do. Today, I'll return my life to this brat." At this moment, Xiao Hua naturally didn't know that Gusichiodi and the others were going to return their lives to him. He leisurely flew behind Shui Mingzi and Ao Zhantian with an arrogant expression. Xiao Hua, a python dragon with a noble bloodline, was acting very well. In his eyes, there was only Ao Zhantian, a descendant of the dragon race. Of course, there was also a trace of disdain in his eyes. This was because Ao Zhantian wasn't a descendant of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, nor was he a descendant of the Dragon Island. As for Shui Mingzi, Su Tingzi, and the others, this python dragon Xiao Hua didn't even look at them. It was as if looking at them would lower his status. Su Tingzi and the others were also filled with disdain when Xiao Hua treated them like this. What was the difference between this and those despicable humans who tried to curry favor with the powerful? Su Tingzi and the others had seen a lot of this. However, Su Tingzi and the others couldn't help but admire this arrogant python dragon. Ever since they met Xiao Hua, Su Tingzi and the others didn't even need to make a move against ordinary demonic beasts. This python dragon flew in front of them and raised its head, releasing a ferocious aura. All the demonic beasts in front of them would be scared witless. Even if they met some troublesome demonic beasts, Ao Zhantian, Shui Mingzi, and the other great grandmasters of the 5th level of origin energy couldn't deal with them. This python dragon with a powerful demonic body didn't use any special abilities and only released its original form. Its huge python body covered the sky as it smashed down. Most of the demonic beasts would be smashed into pieces, and they would also be scared witless. Of course, if they really met an incomparably powerful opponent, the python dragon Xiao Hua transformed into wouldn't care about the life and death of Ao Zhantian, Shui Mingzi, and the others. It would escape without a trace. However, the strange thing was that every time Ao Zhantian, Shui Mingzi, and the others were about to be killed by the demon race, there would always be a mysterious demon race that would appear out of nowhere and break the deadlock that they were about to face. Moreover, these strange demonic beasts came in all shapes and sizes. Even Shui Mingzi had never heard of many of them. What left the deepest impression on Shui Mingzi was that once when they passed by a swamp, they saw an overwhelming number of man-eating demonic beasts surrounding them. Although Ao Zhantian's magic treasure was powerful and killed many of the demonic beasts, there seemed to be an endless stream of demonic beasts in the swamp. At that time, even the most vigilant python dragon didn't manage to escape in advance. Just as everyone was about to be killed, the nemesis of the demonic beasts suddenly appeared in the swamp. It was a type of vine that Shui Mingzi had never seen before. This vine was even more powerful than a 7th-level origin energy demonic beast. Wherever it went, the demonic beasts would collapse. In just half a cup of tea's time, the entire swamp was occupied by the vines. The vines that occupied the swamp seemed to be tired and didn't pay any attention to Shui Mingzi and the others. Xiao Hua transformed into a python dragon and fled first. Only then did Shui Mingzi and the others come to their senses and hurriedly escape from the danger zone. That vine was naturally the sky-soaring vine that Xiao Hua released. The other demonic beasts were also released by Xiao Hua from the Shunhua continent. Under Xiao Hua's disguise, no one discovered anything strange. While everyone looked down on Xiao Hua, they made use of Xiao Hua and then went to rescue Xiao Hua. However, what puzzled Ao Zhantian and worried Shui Mingzi was that after encountering the gathering moth beast that night, Xian Ping, who had lost his physical body, disappeared without a trace. Regardless of whether everyone waited at the agreed location or Ao Zhantian used a secret technique to investigate, there was no news at all. The danger that followed made everyone realize how dangerous the Thousand Beast Sacred Realm was. Everyone thought that Xian Ping's nascent soul had been swallowed by the demonic beasts or demonic beasts. In fact, not to mention Ao Zhantian and the others, even Xiao Hua himself thought that Xian Ping's nascent soul had disappeared from this world. That day, when Xiao Hua saw that everyone was in an emergency, Xian Ping's nascent soul teleported and immediately flew to the Illumination Mountain Range to rescue them. He also sent the Black Bear, White Lion, and Golden Eagle to search for Xian Ping's nascent soul. However, the 3 demonic beasts reported that they couldn't find the whereabouts of Xian Ping's nascent soul. Xiao Hua had no choice but to let the 3 demonic beasts continue to search nearby and send him messages every day. On this day, Xiao Hua was flying behind a group of Dao sect cultivators, and he was admiring himself as he utilized the Buddhist sect's heavenly vision divine ability to inquire about the situation of the past few days. Suddenly, a very familiar voice sounded out by his ears. Fellow Taoist Ao. I have something to discuss with fellow Taoist. I wonder if fellow Taoist is willing? Oh. The other voice naturally belonged to Ao Zhantian. Ao Zhantian's voice was filled with surprise as he transmitted his voice. Fellow Taoist Shui, if you have something to say, please speak. Right now, we're in the same boat. There's nothing we can't discuss. Xiao Hua was taken aback. He raised his head and looked into the distance. Ao Zhantian and Shui Mingzi were flying in front of everyone, while Shui Mingzi was flying behind them. Ao Zhantian's figure clearly paused for a moment, and he looked back in confusion. He even asked, could it be that there are some demonic beasts ahead that we can't handle? Xiao Hua's heart warmed slightly. Just as he was about to retract his divine ability and not listen to their private conversation, Shui Mingzi hesitated for a moment and replied, no. It's just that I want to ask your opinion on Black Wind Mountain.
Ah?
When Xiao Hua heard this, he couldn't help but be shocked. He had been vigilant before, but when he saw Ao Zhantian, Shui Mingzi, and the others risking their lives to head to Bai Qingyu to save him these days, his vigilance had already mostly dissipated. But who would have thought that one may know a person's face but not his heart? Shui Mingzi had actually never extinguished his little bit of selfishness. Xiao Hua ordered the black bear and the others to go far away and search for Xian Ping's nascent soul. Meanwhile, he used his heavenly vision divine ability to eavesdrop on the two's voice transmission. However, he was extremely surprised when he heard Ao Zhantian's voice transmission. Black Wind Mountain? What does fellow Taoist Shui mean? Wasn't Black Wind Mountain besieged by the Immortal Palace a long time ago?
Shui
Mingzi replied, fellow Taoist Ao, you know very well that with Xiao Hua's methods, how could he give up the huge Black Wind Mountain so easily? How could he allow the disciples of Black Wind Mountain to die under the encirclement of the Immortal Palace? Oh, this old man understands now. Fellow Taoist Shui is talking about Taoist Zhao's disciples. Ao Zhantian's voice became even calmer as he said indifferently, I thought you were talking about Black Wind Mountain. Shui Mingzi didn't get angry and continued to ask, fellow Taoist Ao, what do you think of Xiao Hua's disciples? Ao Zhantian was puzzled again and replied, fellow Taoist Shui, what do you mean by this? Those disciples belong to Taoist Xiao. What do they have to do with this old man? What can this old man think of them? Shui Mingzi chuckled and said, fellow Taoist Ao, since we're here and have experienced life and death together, this old man will be frank with you. This old man doesn't believe that you're here purely to save Xiao Hua. Chapter 43-47. Ao Zhantian turned his head slightly and glanced at Shui Mingzi from the corner of his eyes. A strange expression appeared on his face as he transmitted his voice. So you didn't come to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm purely to save Xiao Hua and Dao Master Xiao, right? Of course I wanted to save Xiao Hua from the start. When he spoke up to hear, Shui Mingzi didn't conceal it any longer and explained. But right when I contacted all the fellow Taoists on Hidden Immortal Continent, I noticed to my shock that there were truly many cultivators that received grace from Xiao Hua on Jade Mountain all those years ago. Ao Zhantian frowned. Wouldn't it be better if there were more cultivators who received Dao Master Xiao's grace? Why didn't you contact them? We can save Dao Master Xiao together. Shui Mingzi smiled bitterly and said, fellow Taoist Ao, although we were saved by Xiao Hua that day, we were forced by Taoist Xiao to swear a blood oath of loyalty. Xiao Hua's scheme is not small. I heard about Dao Master Xiao's blood oath and went to the Bronze Pillar Nation. I don't know why, but the blood steel is still there. No Confucian cultivators dared to overturn the blood steel. Ao Zhantian said meaningfully, if that's Dao Master Zhao's plan, I'm willing to do it even though I was forced. That day was that day. What about now? Does fellow Taoist Ao still think so? Shui Mingzi looked at Ao Zhantian and transmitted his voice with a smile. Xiao Hua is being suppressed right now. There are many Taoist cultivators on the Hidden Immortal Continent who received his grace. This is not a small force. Did fellow Taoist Ao notice something special? Ever since the Black Wind Mountain was destroyed by the Immortal Palace, Xiaohua's disciples have never appeared on the hidden Immortal continent. Even when the news of Xiaohua being suppressed by Qingyu spread, I didn't see any movements from the disciples of the Black Wind Mountain. Don't you think it's a little strange? Ao Zhantian smiled faintly and looked into the distance. After thinking for a while, he replied, I understand what fellow Taoist Shui means. Not to mention the number of disciples of the Black Wind Mountain, and not to mention the strength of these disciples. Xiaohua's trip to the Yaotai Mountain and the Taoist cultivators he won over is a force that no one can ignore. This time, fellow Taoist Shui went to Qingyu to save Taoist Master Xiao. You plan to get a share of the loot, right? At this point, Ao Zhantian revealed the truth of the matter to Shui Mingzi. Shui Mingzi only chuckled and didn't say anything. Then how does fellow Water Dao friend intend to get a share of the benefits from Xiaohua? Ao Zhantian decided to get to the bottom of the matter. Shui Mingzi didn't answer. Instead, he asked, could it be that fellow Taoist Ao doesn't think so? Ao Zhantian didn't answer Shui Mingzi's question. Instead, he sent a telepathic message to Shui Mingzi. There are only two ways to reap benefits. The first is to rescue Xiaohua, discuss with Xiaohua, or cooperate with him, or ask him to give up a part of his power. The second, at this point, Ao Zhantian's eyelids twitched. He glanced at Shui Mingzi and said, kill Xiaohua directly. A dead Xiaohua was definitely more valuable than a living Xiaohua. Fellow Taoist can borrow Xiaohua's dying wish. Oh. Or you can take Xiaohua's keepsake and take control of the Black Wind Ridge's power. That Black Wind Ridge disciple hasn't appeared for several hundred years. He must be hiding somewhere in the hidden Immortal continent. After taking control of this power, you can use this power to cooperate with the Taoist cultivators who have received Xiaohua's favor. Fellow Taoist, the benefits you'll obtain will be much greater than rescuing Xiaohua. Fellow Taoist Shui, don't you think so? Shui Mingzi smiled and sent a telepathic message. Fellow Taoist Ao is really good at thinking. It's really a pity that you didn't write a book. If this old man had second thoughts, why would I go through so much trouble to go to Qingyu with fellow Taoist? Qingyu's Demon King is suppressing Xiaohua and will kill him sooner or later. Wouldn't it be better for this old man to act after he kills Xiaohua? So, fellow Taoist is thinking of the first option? A faint smile appeared on Ao Zhantian's face again. That's right. Shui Mingzi nodded. This old man did have this idea. And now, this old man wants to discuss it with fellow Taoist. Huh? So you're saying that fellow Taoist is confident in rescuing Xiaohua? Ao Zhantian was a little surprised. I can't say that I'm confident, but I have some ideas. Shui Mingzi explained. When this old man was at the Black Wind Mountain, I once invited fellow Taoist. Oh, I remember now. You've told me about it before. You're on good terms with a great demon of the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm. Ao Zhantian replied in realization. Indeed. Shui Mingzi nodded. To be honest, this old man is similar to fellow Taoist Ao. I also have the bloodline of the demon race. This bloodline comes from the ancient Bell Mountain of the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm. This old man understands. Ao Zhantian nodded vigorously. Fellow Taoist Shui, you can use the influence of the ancient Bell Mountain's Demon King to rescue Xiaohua. Demon King? Shui Mingzi smiled bitterly and sent a telepathic message. Fellow Taoist Ao thinks too highly of me. How could I possibly have a relationship with a Demon King? I'm just on good terms with a great demon under the Demon King's command. Moreover, I don't know what the relationship between the ancient Bell Mountain and Qingyu is like. I don't know if the ancient Bell Mountain can help in this matter. In particular, even if I'm on good terms with that great demon, the ancient Bell Mountain can still influence Qingyu. I can't just ask the great demon to help me, right? I understand. Ao Zhantian nodded again. Fellow Taoist Shui, are you planning to use Xiaohua's power as a bargaining chip to negotiate with the great demon of the ancient Bell Mountain so that the ancient Bell Mountain can help you? AI, yes. That's what I'm really thinking. Shui Mingzi replied, I was just testing you. I'm ashamed. Ao Zhantian narrowed his eyes and revealed a disdainful smile. The two of them had been testing each other in such a roundabout way for so long. How could he believe that this was Shui Mingzi's original intention? He didn't hide his suspicions and sent a telepathic message. If fellow Taoist Shui is so considerate of Xiaohua, then there's no need for us to send a telepathic message, right? We just need to discuss this matter with the other fellow Taoists. Shui Mingzi smiled mysteriously again and replied, This is indeed my original intention. However, after seeing how difficult it is to enter the Thousand Demons sacred realm and how much we've sacrificed, I had another idea. Isn't that why I'm discussing this with fellow Taoist Ao right now? Right now, you and I are both at the 5th stage of the origin energy realm and have the qualifications to take over the power behind Xiaohua. If we work together, our chances will be greater. Greater? Ao Zhantian was a little confused. Who has the strength to surpass us? I don't know. Shui Mingzi replied. However, I feel that we might not be the only ones who came to the Thousand Demons sacred realm to save Xiaohua. If other cultivators also want to come and take advantage of us, we have to be on guard. On guards? Ao Zhantian frowned and said with a smile, If that's the case, then fellow Taoist Shui should be on guard against me first, right? Ha ha ha. Shui Mingzi laughed heartily. If I were to be on guard against you, why would I need to be so honest with you? You and I have experienced life and death together on the Yaotai Mountain. When I came to the Thousand Demons sacred realm, I also invited you to come with me. If I can't trust you, then who can I trust? Upon hearing this, Ao Zhantian opened his mouth as if he wanted to ask something. However, he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. His gaze swept across the dozen or so nascent soul cultivators to his left. Although he could see that these cultivators all had similar expressions of nervousness, he believed that Shui Mingzi must have had something to rely on. Perhaps some of these nascent soul cultivators had already been convinced by him. With that in mind, Ao Zhantian's heart suddenly jolted as he recalled the time when Xian Ping's body was destroyed by the moth-gathering beast in front of Yizhao Ridge. He had shouted, Shui Mingzi, hurry and save me. At that time, Ao Zhantian didn't pay much attention to Xian Ping's disrespectful words. He only thought that Xian Ping was panicking and was being rude. However, now that he thought about it, Shui Mingzi must have already made some sort of deal with Xian Ping. Ao Zhantian pondered for a moment before replying, Fellow Taoist Shui, I thank you for your trust in me. However, I am a descendant of the dragon tribe and have some influence on the hidden immortal continent. Taoist Xiao and the other disciples of the Black Wind Mountain are nothing in my eyes. I won't hide it from you, fellow Taoist. I came to the Thousand Demons sacred realm to save Taoist Xiao. Of course, I have to pay a price to save Taoist Xiao. I hope that Taoist Xiao will allow me to retract the blood oath I swore for 1,000 years. So that's how it is. Shui Mingzi muttered doubtfully. Fellow Taoist Shui, I don't care what you think or what you do. However, Xiaohua is my savior, so I don't want you to lay your hands on Xiaohua. As for the deal between you and Xiaohua, I'm not interested in it either. Ao Zhantian seemed to have made up his mind a long time ago, as he finally spoke his mind. Of course, if fellow Taoist Shui has any plans that require my help, I won't refuse. Good. Shui Mingzi appeared to be very happy as he nodded. I'm very happy that fellow Taoist Ao has such thoughts. Let's sign the contract now. All right, Ao Zhantian agreed. Let's sign the contract now. Shui Mingzi and Ao Zhantian had made their intentions clear. Shui Mingzi's expression was clearly relaxed while Ao Zhantian's heart was heavy. Compared to Ao Zhantian, Xiaohua's heart was even heavier. He truly didn't expect that this group of people would all have ulterior motives. If he hadn't transformed into a python dragon, how could he have known what they were thinking? When Xiaohua had first transformed into a python dragon, he had felt that his recent actions were unnecessary. Now, however, he felt incomparably fortunate. It was the kind of joy that came from being able to see the situation clearly as a bystander. I want to see what kind of tricks you guys have up your sleeves. Xiao Hua thought coldly as he narrowed his eyes. He didn't retract his heavenly, divine ability. Chapter 43-48. At this moment, Ao Zhantian's heart was a little heavy. He felt that Shui Mingzi's actions were a little unjust, but he soon felt relieved. After all, everyone's thoughts were different. Shui Mingzi didn't have Ao Zhantian's experience on Dragon Island, so Ao Zhantian couldn't force Shui Mingzi to be grateful to Xiao Hua, nor could he force Shui Mingzi to save Xiao Hua like he did. However, after flying for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, they saw a large lake in front of them. The water of the lake was as clear as crystal, and Ao Zhantian was just about to ask Shui Mingzi when his heart suddenly trembled. An indescribable feeling of fear rose from the bottom of his heart. Oh no, this is bad. Shui Mingzi just said that he has the bloodline of the ancient Bell Mountain's demon race, and he has a good relationship with the ancient Bell Mountain's great demon race. With his relationship with the ancient Bell Mountain, although Shui Mingzi can't say that he can do whatever he wants in the Thousand Beasts Sacred Realm, at least he won't be attacked by the demon race everywhere he goes, right? Moreover, if Shui Mingzi wanted to cooperate with a certain clan, why didn't he say anything earlier? Why did he wait until now? Could it be that Shui Mingzi's initial plan was not like this? Then what was his initial plan? Roar. Just as Ao Zhantian had expected, a furious roar erupted from the depths of the pond. A pillar of water shot up into the sky, and an aquatic beast over 100 feet in length stepped on the surface of the water and made its way over. Its ferocious aura had already enveloped the area within a few kilometers. Fellow Immortal. Ao Zhantian turned his head and urged Xiao Hua, who had transformed into a python, to hurry up. However, when he saw the aquatic beast flying over, the python lazily glanced at it with a disinterested expression, completely ignoring Ao Zhantian. Helpless, Ao Zhantian could only wave his hand and say, "Fellow Taoists, let's kill our way over," not to mention that Xiao Hua, who transformed into a python, was hurt by the secret plans of the group of cultivators and had the intention of slacking off. The distance from the pool was more than 10 million li. This place was filled with swamps and towering peaks. Demonic clouds covered the low sky. It was the scorching noon sun, and the sunlight proudly spilled over the earth. However, the sunlight was unable to penetrate the demonic clouds and shine on the swamps. Even though sunlight couldn't penetrate the clouds, the water and mountains under the demonic clouds were filled with 5 colors. The 5-colored halo was like a person's essence, chi, and spirit. It was hidden in the mountains and rivers, nourishing them. Although one couldn't see much with the naked eye, one would always feel that the mountains and rivers here were different from other places. Not only were the mountains and rivers different, but the demon clan and demon beasts that appeared in this area were also different from other places. From time to time, waves would rise in the water. The thin splashes of the water revealed a faint 5-colored light. Under the splashes of the water, shellfish of all sizes would occasionally reveal themselves. Whether it was the small shellfish that were only a few feet long or the big shellfish that were more than 100 feet long, these shellfish had some strange talismans engraved on their shells. The talismans themselves did not have any luster, but under the light of the water, they revealed 5 colors. Some of the colors even formed a halo in midair, hanging there for a long time, like rainbows after rain. Between the mountains, there would occasionally be some Water Clan members holding weapons and moving in groups. Most of these Water Clan members were shellfish. From time to time, the flapping seashells would shine a colorful light onto the mountain peak, making the mountain peak look even taller and more upright. At this moment, buzz. In the distant sky, a rainbow appeared, but in a moment, it landed on one of the mountain peaks. After the rainbow faded, a beautiful female cultivator was revealed. It was Fairy Jing, who had died after drinking the forgotten love water on Broken Heart Mountain. As soon as Fairy Jing landed on the mountain, there was a 5-colored demonic light that clashed with each other. The demonic light rushed out of the mountain about 100 feet to the left of Fairy Jing and turned into hundreds of oval-shaped halos that enveloped Fairy Jing. Wherever the halos landed, the energy of the world was isolated and the space was restricted. Even the sunlight and the water were blocked. It looked very strange and powerful. Seeing this, Fairy Jing wasn't in a hurry. The three-colored light around her flashed, and a heart shell appeared out of thin air. This heart shell was different from the one she gave to Xiao Hua. Not only was the heart shell several times larger, but there were also many more lines on the heart shell. What was special was that the tricolored light of the lines shrank and contracted slightly. It gave off a feeling that made one's heart tremble. It was as if it was a voice or a gaze that made one involuntarily intoxicated. After Xianbei was taken out, the tricolored light suddenly swelled in all directions and landed within the five-colored demonic light. The five-colored demonic light paused in midair, but the tricolored light did not stop. It continued to spread in all directions. When the light had swelled by over 100 feet, the five-colored demonic light shattered with a bang. While most of the demonic light entered the mountain rocks, a small portion of the demonic light turned into a fist-sized banner that charged into the swamp below the mountain peak. The demonic light fell into the lake, and there was another loud bang. A pillar of water rushed out from the bottom of the lake, and more than a dozen demons came out with weapons in their hands.
Who are you?
Are you the king's descendant? The patrolling demons saw that Fairy Jing was a human and was standing on the mountain peak safe and sound. Although they didn't see the heart shell, they knew that she was the descendant of Demon King Bai Qingyu. Although their tone was very serious, there was a hint of intimacy in their tone. I am Li Jing. Fairy Jing smiled and didn't bow. She raised her hand and took out a beast skin from her chest and answered proudly, Today, I came back to the mountain under the king's order to kowtow. Please report to me, patrolling mountain. The king's order? The leader was shocked and looked at Fairy Jing in disbelief. A large hand reached out from the shell and said respectfully, Please show me the king's order. Fairy.
Oh.
Fairy Jing was also puzzled. As she handed the beast's skin to the patrolling demon, she said curiously, Normally, when I return to the mountain, even my token won't be carefully checked, let alone the king's order. What's going on today? Could it be that Bai Qingyu has undergone some changes? The mountain patrolling envoy took the beast's skin and used his yuan will to probe it. He saw that the five-colored demonic light on the beast's skin was like five-colored lines that interweaved in an orderly manner within the beast's skin. Waves of auras that he was familiar with seeped out from the runes on the beast's skin. The mountain patrolling envoy knew that Fairy Jing was right, so he returned the beast skin to her. Then he answered with a smile, What can happen to me, Bai Qingyu? Not to mention the demons of the 1,000 demons sacred realm, even the Confucian cultivators of the hidden immortal continent and the Buddhas of the Western paradise wouldn't dare to find trouble with me, right? Fairy Jing took the beast skin and said with a smile, Then, is there a joyous occasion in the mountain? It's not really a joyous occasion. It's just a banquet. The patrolling demon said without a care. Banquet? Fairy Jing was even more puzzled. What kind of event is that? PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. Just as Fairy Jing asked that, she heard a series of muffled thunder in the sky. A flying imperial artifact that looked like a flower basket appeared between the clouds. Behind that flying imperial artifact, several demons spread their wings and controlled their demonic clouds to follow behind it. Damn it! The patrolling demon who was talking to Fairy Jing cursed and ordered, How can we let them rush here? Quick, capture them first. Yes. The demons behind the patrolling demon hurriedly responded. Their bodies glowed with five-colored radiance, and they immediately turned into rainbows and shot into the sky. These demons didn't directly attack the enemy. Instead, they opened their mouths and took out several colorful flags. When the flags were waved, thunderous sounds could be heard. Woo woo. A gust of wind suddenly rose, and hundreds of demonic auras shot into the sky from the left side of the mountain. Dozens of demons at the Enlightenment Star and moon-picking realm emerged from the demonic auras. They all laughed maliciously and charged toward the flying imperial artifact. When the flying magic tool arrived here, it seemed to be trapped by the demonic formation's forbidden array and could no longer fly. When the flower basket opened, hundreds of flowers bloomed. Dozens of Orus core and nascent soul human cultivators flew out from the basket. When these cultivators saw that there were pursuers behind them and demons in front of them, they did not say a word. Each of them channeled their magic power, and all kinds of magic treasures fell down to attack the demons that surrounded them. The patrolling demon was originally a bit nervous, but when he saw that the magic treasures of these human cultivators had dimmed and that there were limited signs of the heaven-earth origin chi around them, he couldn't help but feel his nervousness gradually dissipate. He coldly snorted and said, "These ants actually dared to participate in the banquet." Fairy Jing was puzzled, but when she saw the humans fighting against the demons, she didn't dare to ask too much. She only focused on watching. Just as the mountain patroller had expected, the several dozens of human cultivators were no match for the demons. In the blink of an eye, apart from a few nascent soul cultivators who were wounded by the demons, the rest of the human cultivators were trapped and captured by over 100 demons using their demonic formations. When the pursuing demons spread their wings and whizzed away, the demons who had captured the human cultivators rushed into the swamp. Fairy Jing said, "Mountain Patrol Envoy, what's going on here? I don't understand." Although Bai Qingyu doesn't dare to say that this is the largest demon realm in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, it still covers millions of miles of territory. If I didn't have a heart, I wouldn't have come here. These human cultivators are clearly Taoist disciples. How could they fly here? And from the looks of it, they seem to want to attack Bai Qingyu? The patrolling demon glanced at Fairy Jing impatiently and was about to casually brush her off with a few words. But suddenly, he thought of the five-colored beast skin in Fairy Jing's hands. His heart jumped, and he hurriedly said, "Fairy, you haven't returned to Bai Qingyu for a long time, right?" "Yes, indeed." Fairy Jing nodded and said, "After I met the Demon King, I went out to sea to train. Counting now, it's probably been close to 200 years. Meeting the Demon King." Hearing Fairy Jing's words, the patrolling demon secretly stuck out his tongue, glad that he hadn't been negligent. He hurriedly nodded and said, "No wonder." "Fairy Jing, you might not know, but recently I, Bai Qingyu, have had a major event. It's the banquet I mentioned to you earlier." Chapter 43-49. Seeing that Fairy Jing didn't understand, the Mountain Patrol Envoy continued, "I don't know what the Qing Banquet is all about. However, because of the Qing Banquet, I obtained the Demon King's token, which allows me to relax my vigilance within Bai Qingyu's territory. Regardless of whether they are here to participate in the Qing Banquet or not, they will be allowed to enter the depths of the demon territory. However, the Demon King's token also clearly states that the area within 10,000 miles of the Demon King's cave is a forbidden area. Humans aren't allowed to enter. Just now. Maybe it's because the flying artifacts of the humans here are too powerful that they managed to sneak in? It would have been fine if the mountain patrolling envoy didn't explain, but after hearing this, Fairy Jing was even more confused. She asked in surprise, "You're saying these dozens of human cultivators are here for the banquet?" "Yes. They are here to participate in the banquet." The mountain patroller nodded and said with a serious expression. Fairy Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She pointed at the flying artifacts that had just been dragged into the swamp and said, "They waved their artifacts like this and came to the banquet in such an aggressive manner? And this is how you captured them to treat the guests?" Speaking of this, Fairy Jing's heart suddenly jolted. Her expression became thoughtful, as if she had understood something. "Sure enough," the mountain patrolling envoy said proudly, "Fairy Jing, you don't know, but my king said that who said the banquet must invite guests? My banquet invites delicacies." "Sigh, I understand now." Fairy Jing waved her hand. "This idea must have been given to my king by the Demon King of ancient Bell Mountain, right?" The mountain patrolling envoy was shocked. His tentacle extended a thumb, and the respect on his face increased. "Fairy Jing, you're indeed a human, and you're indeed of my king's bloodline. I'm impressed. My king just sent out a message saying that the Demon King of ancient Bell Mountain might come today, and he wants us to be careful." "Forget it," Fairy Jing's face showed a hint of arrogance. She waved her hand and said, "I'll go greet my king now." "Fairy Jing, please." The mountain patrolling envoy respectfully bowed. He watched as a cloud appeared under Fairy Jing's feet and carried her into the depths of the swamp. Envy appeared on his face, and he muttered to himself, "Humans are humans indeed. I can't compare to her brain. I only said one sentence, and she understood so much. No wonder she's favored by my king." Fairy Jing controlled the cloud to slowly fly toward a direction. There weren't too many mountain patrolling beasts along the way. However, every time she flew over a mountain or swamp, a powerful sense of origin cheese tea sense would sweep over her. Fairy Jing turned a deaf ear to all of this. Even when she looked at the scenery she hadn't seen in over 200 years, the dense confusion in her eyes didn't dissipate at all. After flying for less than an hour, there were fewer and fewer demons to the left. The scenery became more and more dangerous. On the mountains and in the swamps, there would often be strange lights that would fly out. They would either sweep across Fairy Jing or block her path. Fairy Jing had no choice but to use her heart shell to protect herself. Whenever the tricolored light of the heart shell came into contact with the rainbow would vanish. Stop. Just as Fairy Jing was lost in thought, a bell-like voice rang out from the swamp. "Oh." Fairy Jing was startled and involuntarily stopped in the air. Below Fairy Jing, a reef over 10,000 feet in size suddenly moved. With the sound of water, the reef flew out of the water. Layers of demonic clouds appeared on the surface of the reef. After the green light flashed through the demonic clouds, a water creature several thousand feet in size blocked Fairy Jing's path. Fairy Jing smiled and bowed. "General Shishui, I'm Li Jing. I've come to greet you on the orders of my king." Li Jing? That water creature's head was very big, but his eyes were very small. After blinking a few times, he seemed to remember something and said with a silly smile, "Oh, this old man remembers. You are that little girl who established a country in the hidden Immortal continent. You came here 400 years ago. Hee, it was 200 years ago." Fairy Jing seemed to have a good impression of General Shishui. She smiled and replied, "Old man, you must be sleepy." "Haha, 400 years is about the same as 200 years. General Shishui smiled and slowly fell back into the water. He said, "Little girl, you know that this old man likes to sleep, but you still haven't taken out the King's Demon King token. Aren't you disturbing this old man's sleep?" Yes, it's my fault." Fairy Jing covered her mouth and smiled. She quickly took out the 5-colored beast skin. The beast skin immediately gave off a hazy light that covered Fairy Jing. Seeing the 5-colored beast skin, General Shishui's body fell into the swamp and turned back into a huge reef. Fairy Jing looked up at the huge island 100 miles away. She took a deep breath and flew over. As they approached the island, the scenery on the island entered Fairy Jing's eyes. There were palaces all over the island. These palaces were dazzling with extraordinary auras. Outside each palace, there were water creatures in colorful clothes. They were either carefully walking or holding their breaths while standing respectfully. Powerful auras rushed out of each palace, without any concealment. This was indeed the palace of a demon king. Fairy Jing flew to the front of the island, but she wasn't in a hurry to enter. Instead, she raised her hand and pointed at her heart shell. The heart shell was like a bright star that flashed with brilliance. She then pointed at the 5-colored beast skin. The beast skin landed on the heart shell. Whoosh! The 5-colored halo on the beast's skin suddenly penetrated the beast's skin and turned into the shape of a heart shell that rushed into the air above the island. Pop! Like a bubble bursting in the air, the scenery in front of Fairy Jing suddenly shattered. A 5-colored whirlpool in the shape of a heart shell appeared out of nowhere. Junior Li Jing has come to greet the king. As the ruler of a country, Fairy Jing was very respectful at this moment. She faced the whirlpool in the air and raised her voice. After a long while, a thunderous voice came out from the whirlpool. "Li Jing? Oh, it's you. Why are you only here now?" As the voice passed, 5-colored brilliance flew out of the whirlpool and covered Fairy Jing's body. Whoosh! Fairy Jing's body and heart shell were sucked into the whirlpool at the same time and disappeared in a moment. When Fairy Jing's body reappeared, she was already in an extremely large space. The space looked similar to a cave, but the walls of the cave were not made of ordinary rocks. 5-colored lights were emitted from the walls of the cave. Faintly discernible demonic clouds were gently drifting, and there were many splashes of water that bloomed and faded from time to time. The walls looked very far away, but as far as the eyes could see, the nearly transparent walls were extremely close. Not only were the innumerable talisman markings on the walls clearly visible, even the water ripples outside the walls could be clearly seen. Fairy Jing stood still in the space and looked down at the crystal-clear ground under her feet. At this moment, there were auspicious clouds surging on the ground, as if they were dancing in the wind in the sky. Fairy Jing understood that she had arrived at Bai Qingyu's Demon King Cave. However, there was one thing she didn't understand. Where on the island was the Demon King Cave? When she first entered, Fairy Jing thought that she was on the island, which meant that she was in one of the many palaces. But now that she thought about it, Bai Qingyu's demons were all of the water race. The palaces on the island were probably an illusion. The Demon King's cave should be under the island. When she came in the second time, she made a new discovery. She felt that the Demon King cave was in a space high up in the sky. But when this thought appeared in her mind, she couldn't help but laugh. What did the location of the Demon King cave have to do with her? What was the point of thinking so much? Li Jing, why are you only here now? Do you think you have the power to fight against this king now that you're in charge of a country? Before Fairy Jing could raise her head, a powerful intent came out of nowhere and pressed down like a mountain. A rather unhappy voice sounded in her ears. Let this king tell you, you're just a human descendant of this king. I, Bai Qingyu, have hundreds of humans like you, if not 1,000. This king can find someone to replace you at any time. If it were any other time, Fairy Jing would have panicked and knelt down to beg for forgiveness. But now, an inexplicable sadness rose from the bottom of her heart. Although Fairy Jing knelt down, she didn't beg for forgiveness like before. Your Majesty, after this concubine bid farewell to you, I didn't stay in the 1,000 Demons' sacred realm for even a moment. Then I went deep into the West Ocean to train. In the past 200 years, I haven't set foot in the 3 continents. When this concubine returned to the hidden Immortal continent, I saw your Majesty's Demon King token. This concubine rushed over without stopping and didn't dare to be negligent. Oh, is that so? That voice didn't believe Fairy Jing's explanation and said coldly, this king doesn't care where you went. What this king knows is that because you didn't come in time, you almost delayed this king's important matter. Therefore, this king must punish you. Yes, this concubine understands. Fairy Jing's heart was filled with sorrow and resentment. However, that voice changed the topic and said, the ancestor liked the jade eyes you brought back last time. He said that you've done a great service for Bai Qingyu and wanted to reward you greatly. Now that I think about it, you've atoned for your crimes. This king won't reward you. It's fine. Fairy Jing replied indifferently. This concubine works for your Majesty and doesn't ask for any reward. Get up. That voice said, this king has a few questions for you.
Yes.
Fairy Jing stood up and looked up at the top of the space. At the top of the space, a cluster of dazzling 5-colored light was blooming like a star. Under the light was a huge reef. Precious pearls of various colors were embedded around the reef. Although the pearls were also shining, they were much dimmer than the 5-colored light. Fairy Jing's gaze landed on the light. Illusions of falling flowers and falling leaves or rising and falling tides appeared before her eyes. She turned her eyes and looked away. At that moment, the 5-colored light receded and a shellfish several hundred meters in size appeared on the reef. Your Majesty, Fairy Jing was shocked and hastily asked, may I know what your Majesty wants to ask this concubine? Chapter 4350. The Shellfish Demon King's body moved slightly, and a strange primordial spirit stood up from the shell. This primordial spirit was also five-colored, and there wasn't a single strand of hair on its body. It looked like a little monk. However, this little monk didn't have hands or legs, so it was more like a five-colored boiled egg, with its shell peeled off. The primordial spirit stood up, and a mouth appeared in the middle. It opened and closed its mouth, saying, "Did you get the jade eyes from Xiaohua last time?" Xiaohua? Fairy Jing frowned, seeming to feel a stab of pain in her heart. She said hesitantly, "I don't seem to know Xiaohua, but I do remember that it was Xiaohua, Daoist Xiao, who gave it to me." What did he say at that time? The Demon King wanted to get to the bottom of this. Think carefully. This time, Fairy Jing didn't hesitate at all. She immediately replied, "He asked me if I knew that thing, or if I had seen it before. If I had any information, I could directly send a message to him." "Is that all?" the Demon King asked indifferently. "It should be." Fairy Jing nodded affirmatively. "Although I don't remember what happened before clearly, this matter doesn't seem to be in my lost memories. I can be sure. AI, how troublesome." The Demon King's primordial spirit suddenly swelled several dozen times, and an irritated aura that seemed to fill the entire space swept over, scaring Fairy Jing into trembling slightly. The Demon King said angrily, "I've interrogated you for 100 years, but I couldn't get anything out of you. I thought I could get something out of you when you came, but you actually don't know anything." Interrogate? Fairy Jing was a bit bewildered, looking at the Demon King in confusion. Suddenly, Fairy Jing seemed to realize something, and a trace of ecstasy flashed in her eyes. She said in surprise, "Your Majesty is saying, make a trip to the heavenly dam water prison. Xiaohua is there. Ask him where he saw that thing. As long as he can tell me, I'll definitely let him out. Moreover, there will be a great reward." His Majesty invited Xiaohua to buy Qingyu? Fairy Jing smiled bitterly.
And
A ball-shaped head appeared on the Demon King's primordial spirit. He nodded and answered vaguely, "I received the ancestor's order to invite Xiaohua. It just so happened that I had the opportunity to invite him to buy Qingyu." "Your Majesty has interrogated Xiaohua for over 100 years, but he still didn't say anything. This concubine also doesn't seem to be familiar with Xiaohua. How can I ask him about the ugly truth?" Fairy Jing was a bit embarrassed. "Bullshit," the Demon King scolded. "If you weren't familiar with him, why would he give you such an important jade eye?" "Over the past few days, there have been many human cultivators trying to sneak into my Bai Qingyu, and a few of them are quite capable. What were they doing here? Isn't it just to save Xiaohua?" This Xiaohua really befriended a lot of Dao sect cultivators on Yaotai Mountain. Why didn't he give it to them? Fairy Jing's heart trembled. Thinking of the strange situation outside the Demon King's cave, she immediately understood the purpose of the banquet. However, she still said with difficulty, "But this concubine really isn't familiar with Xiaohua. How do you know it won't work if you don't try?" The Demon King said impatiently, "Quickly go. You don't have much time left." "Yes." Fairy Jing didn't dare to disobey the Demon King's order. She hurriedly bowed and walked towards a cave behind her. However, she only took a few steps before suddenly pausing. She paused for a moment. However, she only paused for a moment before raising her foot again and walking towards the cave entrance. However, at this moment, Fairy Jing's heart was in turmoil again. The Demon King has interrogated Xiaohua for over 100 years, but he didn't get any information. He must have lost his patience. That's why he organized the banquet to lure the cultivators of the hidden Immortal continent who are on good terms with Xiaohua. He can use them to find the information he wants and even use those cultivators to interrogate Xiaohua. The day of the banquet was supposed to be the day Xiaohua was killed. No wonder the Demon King said, "I don't have much time left." It's also strange, Xiaohua. Why does this name sound so familiar? But why is my impression of him so vague? I really don't understand what's going on. Who cares? What does Xiaohua's death have to do with me? Fairy Jing thought as she walked to the cave entrance. There seemed to be light outside the cave, causing Fairy Jing to squint her eyes. She couldn't see the situation outside clearly. When she stepped on the light, it immediately turned into a light screen and slowly opened. Fairy Jing walked out of the light screen. She was clearly outside the island again. Fairy Jing looked around. There was still a hazy mist to her left. It didn't seem to have changed since she entered. Fairy Jing didn't move towards the so-called Heavenly Dam Water Prison because she didn't know where it was. A moment later, a snake-like demon flew out from the island and arrived in front of Fairy Jing. He said respectfully, "Fairy, I am under the orders of the Demon King to send you to the Heavenly Dam Water Prison. Thank you for your trouble." Fairy Jing responded faintly and flew with the demon. After flying for a while, a tall mountain peak that looked like a cauldron appeared in their field of vision. Then, there was a deafening roar, and the whistling of flames could be heard. Fairy Jing released her divine sense, but it was blocked by a strange restriction after just a few miles. She couldn't extend it any further. Just as Fairy Jing withdrew her divine sense, a dozen demon beasts in armor flew out of nowhere. They raised their weapons and blocked Fairy Jing and the water snake. The water snake took out a 5-colored shell and loudly said, "I'm under the Demon King's order to send the human Li Jing to the Heavenly Dam Water Prison." When the patrolling demon beasts saw the 5-colored shell, they immediately bowed and moved aside. After the water snake and Fairy Jing flew past, they didn't dare to go to other places to patrol. They were only a few dozen miles away from the mountain when Fairy Jing encountered 14 patrolling teams. Each team dutifully stopped them and interrogated them. The water snake dealt with all of these investigations. Fairy Jing only quietly watched as the mountain grew closer and closer. The mountain was thousands of feet tall and straight. There was no mountain path to go up or down. The stone walls of the mountain were densely covered with holes of various sizes. Every single one of these holes was filled with fiery light, and every single one of them was letting out clanging noises. The top of the mountain was like a giant torch. Flames hundreds of feet tall rushed into the sky. Above the flames, there was nearly 1,000 feet of black smoke billowing. The black smoke gathered in the sky and condensed into a strange ghost head. It didn't dissipate for a long time. Whoosh! Suddenly, an indescribable cold wind blew on Fairy Jing's body. Although Fairy Jing had a protective light around her, she couldn't help but feel cold when the cold wind blew. She couldn't help but shrink her neck and even tug at her clothes. "Stop!" Seeing that the water snake was about to take Fairy Jing into a huge cave at the bottom of the mountain, a cold voice came from the sky. Fairy Jing's expression didn't change. She slightly raised her head and saw a demonic light rush out from each of the 5 caves. The 5 demonic lights were different. When they fell on top of Fairy Jing's head, they condensed into a ball. A platform dozens of feet large appeared in the light. A beautiful conch woman stood on the platform and looked at her with vigilance. Fairy Jing was a bit surprised and didn't answer. The water snake still raised the 5-colored shell and said loudly, "Under the orders of the Demon King, I'm here to send Li Jing of the human race to the Sky Dam Water Prison." The conch woman nodded and waved her hand. The 5-colored shell fell into her hand. After she looked carefully, she returned the shell to the water snake. If it was an ordinary patrolling demon, they would have waved their hand and let Fairy Jing and the water snake enter. But this conch woman was different. She ignored the water snake and looked at Fairy Jing, asking, "Are you Li Jing, the human descendant of Biyao?" Fairy Jing didn't know where this conch woman came from. But seeing the woman's knife-like eyes looking at her from head to toe and the fact that she was in charge of the water prison, she could only bow and say, "This concubine is Li Jing." "Why have you come to the Sky Dam Water Prison?" the conch woman asked again. "Under the orders of the king, I've come to ask Xiao Hua a few questions." Fairy Jing thought for a bit and didn't hide anything. "You know Xiao Hua?" The knife intent in the conch woman's eyes grew stronger. Li Jing was displeased. She was in charge of a country. How could she lose to this strange demoness in terms of words? She pretended to hesitate and immediately answered, "This concubine isn't familiar with Xiaohua, but since I've received orders from the king, I can only come and take a look." "Oh, so you're not familiar with Xiaohua?" Hearing this, the conch woman unconsciously let out a sigh of relief. Then her face actually changed into a smile, saying, "Elder sister, please don't blame me. Xiaohua is the key to the Sky Dam water prison. This is my duty, so I can't not ask a few more questions." "Hee, it's fine." Fairy Jing nodded with a smile, but she didn't feel that this conch woman was speaking from the bottom of her heart. "Elder sister, please." The conch woman smiled again and waved her transparent little hand. The five-colored platform below her soared into the sky and disappeared into the peak of the mountain. "Fairy, please come with me." The water snake saw this and urged the demon cloud to rush into the cave. Fairy Jing wanted to ask who this conch woman was, but thinking about this so-called Sky Dam water prison, she probably only came here once in her life. She didn't care who this conch woman was. Hiss! Flying into the mountain and seeing everything before her, Fairy Jing couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The situation inside the mountain was far beyond her imagination. She saw a pillar of fire that directly penetrated the mountain in front of her. Chapter 43:51. The magma and flames inside the pillar of fire roared like crazy, and a series of muffled thunderclaps came from the pillar of fire. The surface of the fire pillar was covered with a thin layer of five-colored halo. Between the five colors of the halo, there were many demonic characters. These demonic characters were like clever tadpoles that swam in the halo. Every time the demonic characters swam, there would be a kind of obscure fluctuation. As the fluctuation fell into the void, countless light pillars of stars and moons would rush out from the void. The light pillars of stars and moons did not directly enter the surface of the fire pillar. They only landed a few feet away from the surface of the fire pillar. With a roar, the light pillars transformed into talismans that were similar to demonic characters. The talismans fluttered up and down the fire pillar like dancing butterflies. When these butterflies were tired, they would find a demonic character that was similar to the talismans and land on it. As the talisman fell, a flower-like shadow appeared within the pillar of fire. The moment the roars of thunder and flames from within the pillar of fire fell into the shadow of light, they immediately disappeared and no longer made any sound. The sound of the magma and flames inside the pillar of light was blocked by the demonic runes, but the scorching heat couldn't be completely blocked. Although there was a gap of several hundred feet between the mountain and the pillar of fire, this gap was almost negligible. A heat that ordinary cultivators couldn't resist forced Fairy Jing to use her magic power to resist. "Fairy, please wait a moment." The water snake seemed to dislike the heat and immediately stopped when it reached the side of the fire pillar. It turned its head and took out a piece of animal skin. After spitting out a mouthful of demonic qi, the animal skin turned into a fish and fell between the mountain peak and the fire pillar. Fairy Jing nodded and released her divine sense. She wanted to look through the entire pillar of fire. However, just as she released her divine sense, she felt a burning pain from her divine sense. She was shocked and quickly withdrew her divine sense. She looked at the pillar of fire in horror and knew how powerful the demonic formation here was. Just at this moment, about 1,000 feet to the right of Fairy Jing, a tortoise-like demon was dragged out of a cave by a few shell-type demon beasts. The tortoise's shell was shattered, and demonic blood flowed out from the cracks and dripped into the air. The demonic blood only dripped for about 10 feet before disappearing into nothingness. A few shellfish demons flew towards the fire pillar for a moment and then stopped. At the same time, they activated their demon powers and threw the tortoise demon towards the fire pillar. At the same time, a shellfish monster gently waved a small flag in his hand. As the demonic light from the small flag fell into the fire pillar, a small vortex appeared in the light of the fire pillar. Countless demonic runes spiraled out of the vortex and covered the turtle demon. He dragged the tortoise towards the fire pillar. As soon as the tortoise monster touched the surface of the fire pillar, it immediately let out a heart-wrenching scream. Following the scream, a wisp of flame rushed out of the fire pillar and fell into the vortex. In an instant, the tortoise monster was burned to ash. When the whirlpool fell into the fire pillar, the few shellfish monsters put away the small flag and flew back into the cave and disappeared. Sigh, how is this the heavenly dam water prison? This is clearly the fire pillar hell. Fairy Jing only took a glance and couldn't help but sigh. What was strange was that she looked down at the bottom of the fire pillar with uneasiness. A sense of worry and uneasiness came from the depths of her heart. So, just at this moment, a gust of wind came from the edge of Fairy Jing's vision and arrived before her in just a few breaths. Oh, mid-stage 4th grade origin energy. And the origin intent is actually not afraid of being burned by the fire pillar. Fairy Jing was startled and couldn't help but think to herself. Before the gust of wind arrived, a powerful origin intent swept over and landed on Fairy Jing. Fairy Jing narrowed her eyes and looked at the origin of the gust of wind. Immediately, a demon clan member that was several feet tall and covered in a black shell flew out from the light shadow. The demon clan member's body was hidden in the shell, and its true appearance could not be seen. Only 2 tentacles extended from the sides of the shell, and the tentacles were holding a demon weapon that looked like a sledgehammer. Greetings, emissary. The demon's origin intent landed on the water snake's 5-colored hide. He stopped in midair and respectfully saluted. This is Li Jing of the human race. She's here on the king's orders to ask Xiao Hua a few things. The water snake had repeated this so many times that he himself was getting impatient. Emissary, please. The shelled demon ignored Fairy Jing and respectfully said to the water snake. I won't go down. The water snake waved his hand. First check the king's order and take Li Jing down. I'll wait here. Then take Li Jing back to the king. Yes. The shelled demon took the order and looked at it before returning it to the water snake. His hidden eyes swept over Fairy Jing and said, Fairy, please follow me.
All right.
Fairy Jing knew that the water snake was afraid of heat and didn't want to go deeper. She nodded and followed the shelled demon into the cave. Below the cave, the fire pillar gradually shrank and the mountain peak slowly expanded. The space between the 2 layers grew even wider. However, Fairy Jing's heart slowly shrank as she went deeper. She had previously called the Sky Dam Water Prison the Fire Pillar Hell, but everything she saw made her realize that this was a hell. And it was divided into many layers of hell. Every 10,000 feet she flew, she would encounter a prison filled with demons and even some humans. From time to time, some demons would be tortured and thrown into the fire pillars to burn to death. If it were any other time, Fairy Jing wouldn't have any other thoughts, but today, she couldn't help but worry about Xiao Hua, who was being suppressed here. She didn't even know why she was worried about this unfamiliar human cultivator, whose appearance she had already forgotten. After flying through the endless evil energy, the stench, and the stench of blood, Fairy Jing finally reached the bottom of the cave. At this point, the huge pillar of fire had shrunk to a size of 3,000 meters and pierced straight into the ground. Moreover, the fire pillar here had already taken on a dark red color. The magma and flames within it were not as roaring as before. However, an aura that was even more violent than before was emitted from within the fire pillar. The demonic runes and halos on the surface of the fire pillar seemed to have drifted away due to this violent aura. It seemed that they did not dare to be trapped for long. Where is Xiao Hua? At this point, Fairy Jing didn't dare to release her spirit sense. She looked at the blood-red bottom of the cave and the blood-stained stone walls and was rather puzzled. There, the shelled demon casually pointed at the bottom of the cave and flew up. After all, this shelled demon was also a member of the Water Clan. Although he had a heat-resistant shell, he still didn't dare to stay here for long. Where? Fairy Jing looked at the bottom of the cave. The place where the fire pillar touched the ground was crimson red, and there were faint tongues of fire coming out of the fire pillar. How could she see anything alive? Fairy Jing was about to descend when a fierce wave of heat came from the bottom of the cave. It swept up crazily and extinguished most of the light around Fairy Jing. A wave of heat completely ignored Fairy Jing's defenses and directly entered her body. Fairy Jing was shocked. She immediately flew up 1,000 feet before coming to a stop, still in a state of shock. She looked at the shelled demon that had just flown away. He only flew 100 feet and stopped not far away. She didn't know if he was watching the show or worried for Fairy Jing. Damn it! Fairy Jing looked at the shelled demon and cursed in her heart. She knew that this shelled demon must have done it on purpose. Otherwise, he would have warned her long ago. Unfortunately, the shelled demon's face was hidden in the shell, so Fairy Jing couldn't see his expression. Moreover, this demon only stayed for a few moments before flying back into the cave and disappearing. Humph. Fairy Jing coldly snorted and opened her mouth. Hum. A blue light shot out from her mouth, and a fist-sized sea pearl shot out. Fairy Jing formed a seal with both hands and struck the sea pearl with several seals. The Sea Clan member landed on top of Fairy Jing's head, and a cluster of water light shot out from the sea pearl. With a series of sounds, the water light collided with the surrounding blood-red heat waves. In a few breaths, the water light protected Fairy Jing in a cool and refreshing environment. Fairy Jing looked at the watery light that seemed to be breathing in the heat wave. She then urged her magic power and flew down the fire pillar. However, as Fairy Jing went deeper, the sizzling sounds from the water became more and more intense. Fairy Jing's heart began to feel uneasy again. Although she didn't remember Xiao Hua's situation, she knew very well that the human cultivators she knew, how strong could they be? She couldn't hold on even with her magic treasure. That human cultivator was suppressed here by the Demon King for more than 100 years. What kind of torture did he suffer? How did he survive 100 years of torment? However, even at this moment, Fairy Jing still didn't understand why she had no impression of Xiao Hua, but why did she miss Xiao Hua? She rushed into the flames around the fire pillar and rubbed her hands. Her magic power spread out and a torrent of blue water appeared on the sea pearl and rushed to the bottom of the fire pillar. Shwa! A burst of water mist appeared. When the mist dissipated, there were no flames. Fairy Jing saw a black shadow that was as large as a bull being suppressed by the fire pillar. Fairy Jing was shocked again. She seemed to understand that the pillar of fire didn't pierce into the ground like she had seen with the naked eye. Instead, it was standing inside the mountain. The bottom of the cave was the end of the pillar of fire, and Xiao Hua was pressed to the ground by the pillar of fire. When Fairy Jing flew down several dozen feet and saw the black shadow, her heart ached. That black shadow was a human head. At this moment, it was lying on the ground with only the back of its head pointing to the sky. Compared to the thousands of feet tall pillar of fire, this head was truly tiny and pitiful. Chapter 4352. Xiao Hua? Are you Xiao Hua? Fairy Jing probed in a low voice, her voice carrying a hint of sadness.
Who?
The head seemed to be on the verge of death. Only now did it notice that someone had landed. It tilted its head slightly and looked at Fairy Jing with difficulty. Although the light was as red as blood, although the shadow was like a ghost, and although Fairy Jing was prepared, when she saw half of the human's face, her body trembled as if she had been struck by lightning. She couldn't help but tremble, and tears began to flow from her eyes. Xiao Hua. Fairy Jing once again called out these 3 words. Although these 3 words weren't any different from the 3 words from a few breaths ago, the concern, heartache, sadness, and surprise were countless times greater. Following these 3 words, the memories from 200 years ago that had been washed away by the water of unruffled love gushed out like a fountain that had almost dried up. Every time a sliver of memory was born, Fairy Jing's heart felt as if it was being cut by a knife. The sweetness was filled with sorrow. because she understood in her heart that the reason why Xiaohua was suppressed here and suffered so much for the past 100 years was because of her.
Oh, who are you?
Xiaohua raised his head and stared at Fairy Jing before asking in bewilderment. It's this concubine. Li Jing, you don't remember? Fairy Jing's voice trembled. Xiaohua's words were like a knife stabbing into her heart. She had originally blamed Xiaohua's fall on her. Now that she heard Xiaohua's words, she felt that Xiaohua hated her. The regret in her heart was incomparable. Li Jing. A trace of confusion appeared in Xiaohua's eyes. It was as if he didn't know Fairy Jing at all. This Xiaohua naturally wasn't the real Xiaohua, but rather the transformation of Little White Dragon. If it was Xue Xue or Fairy Hongxia, Little White Dragon would naturally know. However, Fairy Jing hadn't been with Xiaohua for long, so Little White Dragon hadn't seen her before. What was more special was that Xiaohua had never mentioned Fairy Jing again after she left. Even if Little White Dragon had Xiaohua's soul imprint, how could he know Xiaohua's secret? Oh, I remember now. Little White Dragon was only confused for a moment, but it immediately pretended to wake up and replied in a calm tone. Why are you here? This concubine. Didn't this concubine tell you earlier? When Fairy Jing heard Xiaohua's indifferent tone, her heart tightened again. She thought that Xiaohua was blaming her and hurriedly explained, I have the bloodline of the demon race, and this bloodline comes from Bai Qingyu. Oh, I see. The Little White Dragon nodded with difficulty and grinned. Thank you for coming to visit Fairy. Hearing this, Fairy Jing's heart hurt even more. She felt that Xiaohua was mocking her. Fairy Jing said in a low voice, this is not what I expected, nor is it what I want to see. Hee, it's fine. Wasn't it just that he couldn't move here? What can this shellfish do to me? Little White Dragon said indifferently, then spat into the air and shouted, Little shellfish, look at me. I'm just a copper pea. Hit. Boom. Just as Little White Dragon was cursing, the entire fire pillar suddenly emitted a loud roar. A ring of fire suddenly fell from the top of the fire pillar. However, just as it reached the middle of the fire pillar, a powerful wave of energy came crashing down in all directions. Fairy Jing turned pale with fright and hurriedly moved. Just as she fell into a cave, the ring of fire rushed through the cave, and a powerful wave of heat annihilated most of the water of the ocean pearl. Boom! Right before Fairy Jing's eyes, the ring of fire fell to the bottom of the fire pillar and smashed into Little White Dragon. The entire ground shook, and blood-red flames rushed out from the bottom of the fire pillar within a range of several hundred meters.
Roar, roar.
It sounded like a scream, but it also sounded like a dragon's roar. Little White Dragon's voice made Fairy Jing's heart break. The pain was like her heart was being torn apart and sewn back together with needles. Boom! Boom! A series of explosions rang out a total of 9 times. The hundreds of feet tall fire pillar crazily shot out 9 times like a purgatory. Whitey's miserable cries became louder and louder each time, rippling within the mountain peak and within the fire pillar. After half an hour, the ring of fire stopped and the fire pillar gradually calmed down. Fairy Jing flew in front of Little White Dragon again.
Oh?
Why haven't you left yet? Little White Dragon looked at Fairy Jing with a puzzled expression. Suddenly, he realized something and asked you, do you need something? Looking at Xiaohua's familiar face, Fairy Jing's heart began to churn. Fairy Jing had heartlessly left Heartbreak Mountain not because she was too rational, but because she felt inferior. It wasn't just because of her demon bloodline, but also because she was a puppet of the demon race. She felt that her status wasn't good enough for Xiaohua, and she didn't want to bring trouble to Xiaohua because of her status. But now, what she worried about still happened. Little White Dragon was suppressed and tempered by the fire pillar, and Fairy Jing's heart was also roasted in the fire pillar. However, after being stabbed in the heart, Fairy Jing immediately put away her sorrow and made a decision. She sniffed and asked faintly, Yes, I came on the king's orders to ask you where you saw the rainbow-colored conch in the jade eye. Bullshit. Little White Dragon naturally didn't know where Xiao Hua saw the rainbow-colored conch. He only cursed. I said it a few thousand times, I don't know. But Fairy Jing was terrifyingly calm. She asked in return, the jade eye was given to me, and it also told me to send you a message if I saw something similar. Also, I couldn't let anyone else know. If you don't know, others might believe it, but I definitely won't.
Ah?
Little White Dragon was stunned.
He didn't know how to answer.
Fairy Jing didn't wait for him to answer. Instead, she continued, when I obtained the jade eye, I was shocked because I was very familiar with the brilliance of the rainbow-colored conch. It was very similar to Bai Qingyu's 5-colored conch. However, I didn't have the king's permission, so I didn't dare to casually explain it to you. Therefore, after I obtained the jade eye, I returned to Bai Qingyu and reported this matter to the king. I wanted the king to make a decision. The expression on Little White Dragon's face was very interesting. This was Xiao Hua's secret. He didn't want to interfere, but unfortunately, he was still dragged into the web of love in Fairy Jing's heart. He didn't know how to respond. Should he curse Fairy Jing? Should he curse her? Or should he comfort Fairy Jing? At this moment, a pleasant voice that sounded like a kingfisher interrupted Fairy Jing's words. It came from above the pillar of fire. Damned bitch. Ah. Fairy Jing was stunned. She quickly looked up and saw a 5-colored demonic cloud carrying an extremely beautiful and graceful woman. That woman's eyebrows were slanted and her almond-shaped eyes were wide open. She stared at Fairy Jing as if she was looking at an enemy. She didn't even wait for her to come close before cursing. If it wasn't for you, how could Xiao Hua be suppressed here? You actually have the face to interrogate me? Look at your withered appearance. You still dare to act pitiful here? If I were Xiao Hua, I would definitely drown you with my spit. Who are you? Fairy Jing's scar had been exposed, so she was extremely angry. She glared and coldly asked, Who are you? Woo. That woman sneered. She didn't seem to take any action, but a rumbling sound came from her body. Her origin sense was mixed with a kind of power, and it pressed down on Fairy Jing like a mountain flood.
Ah?
Fairy Jing sensed the power of this power and was shocked. She didn't dare to be careless and quickly patted her head. Woo. She released the pressure of a nascent soul cultivator, wanting to resist. Boom. A loud sound came from the empty mountain peak. Fairy Jing's figure was sent flying like an autumn leaf. When she landed, the blood on her face suddenly surged and then retreated. Her face was deathly pale. 6th grade origin force. Fairy Jing's eyes were filled with shock. She was clear that this woman's pressure was immediately withdrawn when it touched her. It wasn't too forceful. However, with just a touch, Fairy Jing's qi and blood had already surged and her true essence had gone astray. This woman was at least a 6th grade star-plucking realm cultivator. You're only a 4th grade descendant. You dare to be arrogant in front of me. That woman was very arrogant. Seeing Fairy Jing's shock and pale face, she berated, Why aren't you screaming? Fairy Jing clenched her teeth. Although she didn't know this woman was able to enter the Sky Dam water prison and even reach the bottom of the fire pillar. She was naturally an important demon to Bai Qingyu. Fairy Jing didn't dare to talk back to this woman, but she wasn't willing to lower her head to this woman in front of Xiao Hua. She squinted her eyes and said, This concubine is under the king's order to ask. Since Xiao Hua isn't willing to speak now, this concubine will come again in the future. Xiao Hua, the king said that as long as you tell him where you saw this rainbow conch, he will immediately release you and reward you greatly. Little White Dragon bitterly smiled. He was willing to speak, but he really didn't know where he saw this rainbow conch. Seeing Little White Dragon not speaking, Fairy Jing's heart ached even more. She didn't even look back as she flew towards the top of the fire pillar. When she arrived at the exit of the mountain peak, the water snake was still waiting there. Seeing Fairy Jing come out, the water snake didn't ask about the result and turned to bring Fairy Jing back to the Demon King's cave. Fairy Jing bit her lips and said, Wait.
Oh?
Is there anything else? The water snake asked curiously. If there's nothing important, it's better to turn back. The king is still waiting for a reply in the cave. Chapter 43:53. I didn't get anything out of him. If I go back and report this to the king, I'm afraid I'll be scolded. Fairy Jing lowered her eyebrows and timidly replied, Leave the king's order here and report back to the Demon King's cave. I'll go down in a few days and ask again. What do you think? The water snake only pondered for a moment before handing the 5-colored beast skin to Fairy Jing. It nodded and said, That's good. The king has been troubled by this matter. If Fairy Jing can get something out of him, not to mention once or twice, even 10 times would be a great merit. Fairy Jing nodded absent-mindedly and took the beast's skin.
She flew to the left side of the mountain.
The water snake didn't suspect anything and returned to the Demon King's cave to report. At the bottom of the Heavenly Dam water prison, the woman saw that Fairy Jing had lost all face and left in a sorry state. She let out a cold snort and said, You're only a human, yet you dare to steal my lover. After saying that, the woman landed in front of Little White Dragon. She looked at Little White Dragon and said coldly, What? Do you feel bad? When did you get this old lover? She caused you to be like this and you still treat her like this? You can't even bear to say a harsh word to her? Humph. None of your business. The Little White Dragon let out a cold snort and ignored the woman. I owe you. When the woman saw that the Little White Dragon was angry, she immediately turned into water and jumped before the Little White Dragon. She coquettishly said, When you were looking at the moon with me, you called me little sweetie. Now that the new person has surpassed the old, you're actually ignoring me. Bullshit. The Little White Dragon looked up and cursed. When will you see the moon here? How could I call you little sweetie? So you want to see the moon? That's great. I've always wanted you to accompany me. The woman was pleasantly surprised. She raised her hand and took out a 5-colored flag. When she waved the flag, the stone wall at the mountain peak immediately disappeared. However, it was noon outside the mountain peak, so where did the moon come from? The woman was a bit busy and quickly said, Don't rush, don't rush. Although she told him not to rush, her actions didn't seem to be in a rush at all. He hurriedly waved the flag and restored the mountain wall to its original state. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of green light. The green light rushed into the sky and turned into a green full moon. The faint brilliance of the moon sprinkled down like moonlight, brightly illuminating the blood-red flames. The Little White Dragon soldier was unmoved. It looked at Yu Huan differently and said coldly, What do you mean by this? Are you trying to show off in front of me? Io, Xiaolang, how would I dare? The woman was shocked. She quickly opened her mouth and swallowed the green light. She said, Wait a little longer. It will be night in a few hours. At this point, a strange expression appeared on the woman's face, as if she was about to cry.
What?
Little White Dragon chided. If you don't let me see the moonlight, darling Xiao. The woman was on the verge of tears. Today seems to be the 3rd day of the lunar month. There's no moon. Humph. Little White Dragon didn't say anything. It only snorted coldly. However, this sound was like thunder in the woman's ears. She hurriedly said, Darling Xiao, it's all my fault. Don't be angry with me. Actually, I just casually taught her a lesson. I didn't mean to hurt her, and I'm not jealous. I just think that she's too much. If it weren't for her, how could you have been suppressed here for 143 years and 42 days? Hearing the woman's precise description of the date, a smile appeared on Little White Dragon's face. It replied, If I wasn't suppressed here, how could I have met you? Hee, that's true. When the woman saw Little White Dragon smile, she was happier than anything else. She hurriedly flew up from the ground. Her entire body spun a few times in the air, as if she was showing off. Darling Xiao, take a look. Don't you like human forms? The human form I transformed into today. Do you like it? There's no need to look. Little White Dragon blurted out. You're the most beautiful in the world. It doesn't matter if you transform or not, I like it. Darling Xiao. That woman was really drunk. With a moan, she threw herself at the side of Little White Dragon's head. Strangely, when the woman's body leaned against the pillar of fire, the demon runes on the surface of the pillar of fire could not stop her. The woman's body disappeared into the pillar of fire. Then, the entire fire pillar shone with demonic light, enveloping an area of several thousand feet. Several days later, a timid voice came from the demonic light. Yaoji, the king has ordered you to kowtow in the Demon King's cave. On the demonic light, the conch woman, who had been wary of Fairy Jing, stood respectfully on the demonic cloud. She lowered her head, not daring to look at the demonic light. She only whispered to Fairy Jing, "Damn it!" The voice of the woman hidden in the pillar of fire was very pleasant to the ears, but it was also somewhat angry. "Call me princess. Didn't you hear darling Xiao calling me princess?" "Yes, yes, your highness." The conch woman trembled and hurriedly changed the way she addressed her. "This servant deserves to die. Please forgive me, your highness. The king has ordered for your highness to go to the Demon King's cave." "Damn it." The princess was still cursing, but there was a hint of laziness in her voice. When the demonic light flickered, an extremely graceful figure appeared in the fire pillar. The curves of this delicate body were indescribably seductive, especially at her abdomen, where there was a bulge. Strangely, the woman's skin flashed with a seductive five-colored halo, and the oval on her abdomen had a different color. Humph. Little White Dragon didn't miss the opportunity to snort. The woman was startled, and a five-colored halo flashed. A gorgeous set of clothes instantly appeared and tightly wrapped around her body. "Darling Xiao, don't be angry," the woman begged in a low voice. "I'm not too familiar with this human's body. Wear more clothes in the future. Don't let everyone see everything." Little White Dragon shouted, in an imposing manner. The woman replied in a delicate voice, "Yes, darling Xiao. Hurry up and scram." Little White Dragon roared again. The woman wasn't ashamed of Little White Dragon's scolding. Instead, she smiled sweetly and kissed Little White Dragon's cheek before flying into the air. Looking at the conch girl, she asked coldly, "Who sent the message?" "It's that bitch from a few days ago." The conch girl said indignantly, "She must have said something to the king, and that's why the king summoned Princess Yao for questioning. She doesn't want to live anymore." The woman was furious. "How dare she ruin my plans? I'm going to skin her, pull out her tendons, and let her know how powerful I am." As she spoke, the woman's body flashed with five-colored demonic light, and she flew toward the mountain's exit. "Io, princess, wait for me." Although the conch girl called out, she didn't fly high. Instead, she strangely turned her head and looked at Little White Dragon. She winked mischievously at Little White Dragon, as if she was proud of herself for sowing discord. Humph. Little White Dragon raised its head with a lazy smile on its face, but its brows were filled with disdain. When she heard the Little White Dragon's cold snort, the woman, who had already turned her head to look at the Little White Dragon, suddenly stopped. The woman raised her head to look at the sky, after which she clenched her teeth and suddenly flew in front of the Little White Dragon. She fiercely kissed the Little White Dragon's face and cried out through gritted teeth, "Xiao Lang, you miss me so much." After saying this, the conch girl didn't dare to stay for long. She hurriedly flew into the sky and reluctantly looked at Little White Dragon before she flew out of the cave. Since ancient times, excessive love has left behind only regret. This regret will never end. Little White Dragon's melancholy voice rang out from under the fire pillar. "Heavens, forgive me for my unruly love." Just as Little White Dragon finished speaking, boom, there was a huge roar above the fire pillar. Another ring of fire was born from the peak of the mountain, and it fell down with a huge force. Roar. Little White Dragon howled in grief as a sea of fire appeared. Which Confucian cultivator said that pain always comes after pleasure. Damn it, it's too true. The Little White Dragon's sorrowful wails and recitation naturally could not reach the exit of the mountain. However, A figure stood at the exit, watching the endless rings of fire descend. His eyes were already filled with tears, and an indescribable sense of remorse appeared between his brows. When the ring of fire disappeared, this figure immediately took out a five-colored beast skin and rushed to the bottom of the fire pillar without hesitation. This figure was Xiao Hua's acquaintance, but Little White Dragon didn't know who Fairy Jing was. Outside of the swamp where the Demon King's cave was located. The sky was covered with red clouds. Thin strands of lightning were faintly discernible between the clouds. The muffled sound of thunder was covered by the loud whistling sound of the wind. The wind became stronger and stronger, blowing away the withered grass and breaking the trees. Even the gravel was blown into the air. It was truly a scene of flying sand and rolling stones. The clouds were low and lightning flashed. Crackle. Raindrops mixed with hail began to wreak havoc between heaven and earth. Ga. An eagle's cry came from the horizon. The red clouds that covered the horizon suddenly rolled. A golden-winged great prung that was several hundred meters in size spread its flashing lightning wings and revealed its figure in the clouds. This golden-winged great prung flapped its wings, and a hurricane suddenly appeared. The dense red clouds were immediately blown away by the hurricane, and a passage several li in size appeared in the clouds. Rumble. Several bolts of lightning fell and hit the back of the golden-winged great prung. Boom. Hundreds of demon characters rushed out from the back of the golden-winged great prung. They flickered with golden light and turned into a faint bird shape to block the lightning. Then, the lightning turned into threads of lightning that fell between the golden-winged great prung's wings. Woo! The golden-winged great prung flapped its wings again and crossed several li in an instant. Chapter 4354. Haha. Brother Peng's ability is indeed powerful. I'm not as good as you. After the golden-winged great rock leaped over the wind and lightning, a slightly hoarse voice rang out from within the gradually gathering red clouds. Following which, a strange whirlwind appeared. This whirlwind was as heavy as a mountain. Although it did not blow a path through the red clouds like the golden-winged great rock, it was still able to sweep away all the red clouds within a radius of several kilometers. Within the whirlwind, a strange demonic beast revealed itself. This demonic beast looked like a dragon, but it was much smaller than a real dragon.
It was even a little short and fat.
On the demonic beast's back was a pair of wings that did not belong to the dragon race. Below the wings was a particularly protruding abdomen. However, on the demonic beast's head was a single horn that was extremely similar to a dragon's. In the lightning, it gave off an indescribable halo. Haha, we are the golden-winged great prung. Wind and thunder are innate, remarkable abilities. How can we compare to a flying feather-void beast like you? Whether it's wind, thunder, or earth fire, we can calmly escape through them. The golden-winged great prung's loud laughter sounded. Although it was humble, its tone was not without pride. Haha. The flying feather-void beast smiled. Its short and fat body trembled slightly, and the wings on its back flashed. Strange ripples suddenly appeared in the space within the whirlwind. These ripples landed on the flying feather-void beast's body, and the flying feather-void beast instantly disappeared. A light mark like a wing flashed faintly through the red clouds, and it quickly surpassed the golden-winged great prung. Damn it! The golden-winged great prung yelled. I didn't plan to compete with you. What's the point of surpassing me? As he spoke, the golden-winged great prung flapped its wings again and chased forward amidst the lightning and wind. The two demonic beasts seemed to be even faster than the wind and thunder. In less than half a meal's time, they had already surpassed the area covered by the wind and thunder. A golden light flashed in the golden-winged great prung's eyes as it looked towards the ground. Then, a powerful origin thought swept towards a swamp like a mountain.
Boom.
Just as the golden-winged great prung's origin thought swept across the swamp, a pillar of light shot up into the sky. When the pillar of light landed in front of the golden-winged great prung's head, Bai Qingyu's body flashed with a five-colored halo as she appeared within the pillar of light. Brother Peng, brother and I. Demon King by Qingyu's shellfish, which was hundreds of meters long. A strange voice came from within the shellfish. Pung, 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 great pangs pung. As soon as Demon King by Qingyu's voice fell, a layer of spatial ripples appeared above his head. Bai Qingyu didn't dare to delay and hurriedly moved aside. The flying feather Nikong beast's figure appeared amidst the spatial distortion. Its wings were still flapping slightly. Haha, Bai Qing. The flying feather Nikong beast laughed and said, "The two of us had already set off. However, we received a message from Peng Sage. It seemed to be related to the 7th Great Sage, so I followed Peng Jun back to Veiling Sky Ridge." "Oh?" Bai Qingyu was startled and hurriedly asked, "And I Quan, who is the 7th Great Sage of our demonic beasts?" The flying feather Nikong beast's expression didn't change. He raised his hand and pointed at the golden-winged Great Prung who had stopped behind him. "You'll have to ask Peng Jun about that." When the golden-winged Great Peng Jun saw that the flying feather Nikong beast had surpassed him, a trace of displeasure appeared on his face. When he saw an eye Quan pointing at him, he said coldly, "My ancestor didn't say who it was. How do you want me to tell you?" Haha. Bai Qing smiled and said, "This isn't the place to talk. Two demonic brothers, please come to my Demon King cave for a chat." "Please." An eye Quan smiled and glanced at Peng Jun. After a moment of politeness, he followed Bai Qing and descended. The three demonic beasts entered the Demon King cave and took their seats. The water tribe served a banquet. Before the banquet started, Peng Jun looked around and asked curiously, "Brother Bai, where's your brother? Why didn't he come out? Could it be that he was defeated by me last time and doesn't dare to come see me?"
Who knows where he went?
Bai Qing glanced at Peng Jun unhappily. After being defeated by you last time, he didn't return to Bai Qingyu. It seems that he heard that one of his descendants got into trouble, so he went to take a look. It's either the hidden Immortal continent or the Western Paradise. Haha, he's really bold. Peng Jun smiled and didn't ask anymore. Then, the three raised their cups and drank. After chatting for a while, Bai Qing looked at Peng Jun again and said with a smile, "Brother Peng, I wonder what message Peng Sage sent you? Can you tell me?" Peng Jun looked up and asked Bai Qing with a faint smile, "Could it be that Bai Sage didn't send any news about the 7th Great Sage to Bai Qingyu?" Sigh. Bai Qing sighed and put down his wine cup. He said, "How could Bai Sage send a message directly to me? The message I received was from the star-obscuring lake. Although there's a lot of news from the star-obscuring lake, who exactly is the 7th Great Sage, and where in the 1,000 demonic sacred realm did he become a great sage? Until now, the star-obscuring lake still hasn't given a definite answer. I think my old ancestor is also confused. If Bai Sage is like this, then why isn't my old ancestor?" Peng Jun smiled and said, "The news I received actually came from Songyue Heaven. It wasn't personally sent by Peng Sage. It's just that brother and I happened to see it, so he made a big fuss about it." "Brother Peng, don't blame me for talking too much." And I Quan hurriedly explained, "After all, the 7th Great Sage's appearance is too strange. From the news from the Xian Space Forest to my ancient Bell Mountain, it can be seen that his ascension to a great sage is much stronger than my old ancestors. That momentum is comparable to our demon race's first great sage, Peng Sage. Therefore, I think your Songyue Heaven might have received more information." Peng Jun pondered for a moment and said, "Actually, the news from Songyue Heaven this time is also a guess about the 7th Great Sage's strength. What do you mean?" Bai Qingyu and Ancient Bell Mountain were shocked and stared at the demon monarch of Songyue Mountain. "My old ancestor and the other 5 great sages have already gathered in the Great Sage Hall." Peng Jun smiled bitterly. "It's said that there's already a phenomenon that has never appeared in the Great Sage Hall. This phenomenon shows that the 7th Great Sage's strength not only surpasses Peng Sage's, but also surpasses all the great sages in the 1,000 demonic sacred realm." Ancient sages? Bai Qing and Ni Quan couldn't help but exclaim. "That's right. Ancient sages in the past, and it's even possible that there won't be any sages in the future." Peng Jun nodded and looked at the flying feather void beast. He said snappily, "This is the reason why I lost my composure when I saw the beast's skin. Presumably, it won't be long before the two of you receive the news from the Xian Space Forest and the obscuring Star Lake." Damn it, how is that possible? Bai Qing looked at An I Quan, and then at Peng Jun. She lowered her voice and exclaimed, "Although we only control a corner of the demon realm, the 6 great sages have investigated the entire demon realm." How did a great sage appear? They don't know anything about it?
What's so strange about that?
Peng Jun said disapprovingly. The hidden Immortal continent is the world of Confucian cultivators, and the Immortal Palace has investigated the 9 prefectures. However, didn't the Tao sect have a primordial chaos ancestor? If not for the Buddhist and Confucian cultivators working together and even borrowing the power of our demon race, how could they suppress him? Even if they did, didn't the primordial chaos ancestor escape and harm the Confucian cultivators? Forget it. Forget it. Bai Qing laughed and raised his wine cup. The 7th Great Sage's matter is related to the Great Sage Hall. It's the Great Sage's effort and has nothing to do with us. When there's news, we'll naturally know. Come, 2 demon brothers, please. Drink. Peng Jun also smiled and raised his cup. We'd better worry about our own matters and help the great sages take care of the trivial matters. Please. The 3 demon kings drank again, and then the women of the water tribe came to dance. After half an hour, Bai Qing waved his hand, and the attendants left. He opened his mouth again and said, 2 demon brothers, this time I invited you 2 demon brothers to discuss the banquet. Banquet? And I Quan looked at the other 2 demon kings and said with a smile, "It's a good banquet. Does Brother Bai have other ideas?" Bai Qing hurriedly explained, "Banquet is such a brilliant idea. It's completely Brother Ni's idea. I can't think of any good arrangement even if I break my head. However, since it's a banquet, there must be a time when the song ends and people disperse. I want to discuss with you 2 demon brothers how to deal with Xiao Hua."
Oh.
Peng Jun raised his eyebrows, and a strange light flashed in his golden eyes. He said curiously, "I don't understand. What does Brother Bai mean?" And I Quan smiled and said, "Brother Bai is quite interesting. The banquet hasn't even started yet, but Brother Bai isn't discussing how to harvest the banquet with us. Instead, he's talking about the bait's ending. This really puzzles me." "There's nothing strange about this." Bai Qing smiled faintly and said, "It should be related to the 3 demon kings' ideas. It should be related to what we want from Xiao Hua." Hearing this, An I Quan smiled and looked at Bai Qing. He asked, "Since Brother Bai mentioned your idea and purpose, I also want to ask something. Back then, when Xiao Hua came to my ancient Bell Mountain, he was a good friend of a human descendant of my ancient Bell Mountain. He seemed to have nothing to do with my demon race. I don't know why Brother Bai suddenly set a trap for me after hearing the name of this human. You used an ordinary demon weapon to exchange for my sleeve. Only then did you capture Xiao Hua and bring him to Bai Qingyu to be suppressed. Of course, I was very puzzled after that. I started to look for news of Xiao Hua everywhere. Only then did I find out that Xiao Hua was actually the Dragon Master conferred by the Dragon Island. Damn it, I was stunned at that time. When did you, Bai Qingyu, become so daring? You actually went against the Dragon Island? This question. I've been suppressing it in my heart for hundreds of years. I didn't dare to say it out loud. It seems like today is the time to reveal it. Chapter 43-55. Hearing this, Bai Qing sneered in his heart. How could he not know what An I Quan was thinking? He even felt that before he made a move to capture Xiao Hua, An I Quan should have already known that Xiao Hua was the Dragon Island's Dragon Master. However, An I Quan also wanted to obtain some benefits from Xiao Hua, so he pretended not to know. If the Dragon Island came to denounce him, he would use his ignorance as an excuse to evade responsibility. If An I Quan could say so, how could Bai Qing not? He replied with a sad face. This old man also didn't know at that time. It wasn't until Xiaohua was suppressed in the heavenly dam water prison that this old man got the news. At that time, this old man was already in a difficult position. So, when the two demon brothers came to discuss with this old man again, this old man agreed, without hesitation. Even if the two demon brothers wanted to gain benefits from Xiaohua, this old man didn't even think of asking. Hehe. And Quan laughed. What this old man wants to do, although I didn't tell you clearly, I don't believe that you don't understand after more than 100 years. Whether this old man understands or not, that's my business. Bai Qing shook his head. What exactly do you want to do? I still need you to say it yourself. I think it's time for Ancient Bell Mountain, Bai Qingyu, and Concealed Sky Ridge to be frank and honest, right? Peng Jun had been silent all this time. At this moment, he suddenly opened his mouth. Brother Bai, how do you plan to deal with Xiaohua after the banquet? Kill him? And Quan asked with interest.
No.
Bai Qing shook his head slightly. My ancestor said it herself. Ancestor said it? Peng Jun was shocked and said anxiously, how does she know about this? This old man doesn't know. Bai Qing shook his head slightly. His face was also puzzled, and replied, my ancestor wants to search his soul personally. Hiss. Peng Jun heard and unconsciously took a breath, his face showing a difficult expression. Two demon brothers. Bai Qing saw that Peng Jun was in a difficult position and understood what he was thinking. She said, actually, I wanted to search your soul several decades ago. However, because I, Bai Qingyu, made an agreement with the two demon brothers, and the two demon brothers, especially Brother Peng, abided by the agreement when they came to ask for information, I didn't want to break the agreement. This time, I'm discussing the banquet with Brother Peng because of my ancestor's words. I want to make a final effort for you two demon brothers. Sigh, this old man understands.
Peng Jun said with a sigh.
Many thanks, Brother Bai. Let's do as Brother Bai says. Since the old ancestor has spoken, this old man will have to answer to Tsangyu Tian when I return. All right. Seeing that Peng Jun had agreed, Bai Qing heaved a sigh of relief and looked at an Quan. What about brother and I? I don't care. An Quan said with a smile, this old man just thinks highly of Xiaohua's power in the hidden immortal mainland. I want to support him to be the representative of Ancient Bell Mountain. You also know that my Ancient Bell Mountain is not like Bai Qingyu and Concealed Sky Ridge. We don't control much power in the hidden immortal mainland. This Xiaohua is a Dao sect cultivator, and he happens to be on good terms with a human descendant of my Ancient Bell Mountain. If we use him, we can save a lot of energy. I even heard from my human descendant that this guy's strength may be comparable to Grand Mist Ancestor in the future. That's why this old man made a previous agreement with you. If you don't need Xiaohua, then search his soul. Even if you kill him, it doesn't matter. My human descendant already has a way to deal with this. Bai Qingyu glanced at an Quan and said with a smile, your Ancient Bell Mountain really has a good idea. This Xiaohua does have some foundation in the hidden immortal mainland. Since the news of the banquet spread out, more than 10 groups of Dao sect cultivators have come to find and rescue Xiaohua. After the banquet, this old man will hand over those Dao sect cultivators to your human descendant. Many thanks, Brother Bai. An Quan smiled and raised his cup. After the three monster kings drank a few more cups, Peng Jun said meaningfully, oh right, Brother Bai, in these years, could it be that Dragon Island or the Dragon Race didn't come to investigate? Yes. Bai Qingyu sighed. Xiaohua is the Dragon Master of the Dragon Race. Not only did the Dragon Island not send any Dragon Race to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, this is the reason why this old man has been nervous. This old man didn't dare to relax for hundreds of years. Isn't it because I'm afraid of the Dragon Race's revenge? Peng Jun sneered in his heart. How could he believe Bai Qingyu's complaints? He then probed. Although Xiaohua is a human cultivator, his strength is not particularly high, but since Dragon Island conferred him the title of Dragon Master. What? Hearing this, Bai Qingyu was shocked and hurriedly interrupted Peng Jun's words. He said curiously, Brother Peng, say it again. You said Xiaohua is a human cultivator? Yes. Peng Jun said curiously, Xiao Hua is naturally a human cultivator. You think he's a dragon? But Bai Qingyu was puzzled and was about to speak when Anai Quan also said with a smile, Brother Bai, of course Xiao Hua is a human cultivator. Otherwise, why would he participate in the Immortal Palace's Jade Pavilion gathering and make friends with the human descendant of our ancient Bell Mountain? Damn it! Bai Qingyu almost jumped up and said in shock, could it be that we made a mistake? How could it be a mistake? Peng Jun's heart also moved, but his expression was still calm. He said with a smile, Brother Bai, do you still remember the demonic artifact this old man took the first time? Bai Qingyu originally wanted to explain, but after hearing Peng Jun's words, he swallowed his words and said doubtfully, of course this old man remembers. You even activated the demonic artifact in front of this old man and interrogated Xiao Hua. Actually, Peng Jun said with a smile, that demonic artifact is not a demonic artifact, but a soul artifact. This old man didn't interrogate Xiao Hua the first time. This old man was just activating the soul artifact to confirm whether this Xiao Hua is the real Xiao Hua. You're sure? Bai Qingyu was dumbfounded. Xiao Hua is the human Xiao Hua you're looking for?
Yes.
His soul is Xiao Hua's soul. Peng Jun replied resolutely, this old man can guarantee, but as for how this old man knows, forgive this old man for not being able to say. What the hell? What the hell? Bai Qingyu was greatly surprised. How is this possible? Could it be that you and I, the three Monster Kings? At this moment, a clear voice sounded outside the Monster King's cave. Father. Following this voice, a shell-type monster with a 5-colored halo around her body flew in. That monster called out before she came in, Father, what's the matter that you're urgently looking for your daughter? Io, just in time. Bai Qingyu saw the shell-type monster come in and said loudly, Bai Bo, come over and tell the two Monster Kings whether that Xiao Hua is a human or a dragon. This concubine greets the two Monster Kings. The halo around the shell-type monster named Bai Bo flashed a few times, and then she bowed respectfully. Get up. Anai Quan was the least anxious. With a wave of his hand, he helped Bai Bo up and said with a smile, Brother Bai is so lucky. Your Bai Qingyu's Yao Ji has only not seen you for a few decades, and your strength has increased by a lot. I'm afraid you're about to reach the sun-devouring realm, right? Your Majesty praises me too much. Bai Bo said with a smile, this concubine is only at the star-plucking realm. There's still a long way to go before I reach the sun-devouring realm. This is my Songyue Heaven's Monster Core. It's most useful for the star-plucking realm water clan.
Just keep it.
Peng Jun was somewhat impatient. He raised his hand and took out a pill from the universe ring and handed it to Bai Bo, saying, Tell this king whether that Xiao Hua is a human or a dragon. Thank you, Your Majesty. J-Wave happily accepted the medicinal pill, then swept a glance at his father and said, Xiao Hua is originally from the dragon race. How can he be a human? How is this possible? Not only did Peng Jun roar, even Anai Quan turned pale with fright. He looked at Bai Qing and shouted, Brother Bai, how is this possible? Could it be that we three Monster Kings have schemed for hundreds of years, but in the end, we still can't figure out whether Xiao Hua is a human or a dragon? Whether Xiao Hua is a human or a dragon, it doesn't matter at all. Bai Bo was very puzzled. What this old man wants has nothing to do with whether he's a human or a dragon. Moreover, since Xiao Hua is Dragon Island's Dragon Master, he's naturally a dragon. What's so strange about this? AI, wrong. Anai Quan waved his hand and said, Xiao Hua is a Dao sect cultivator. He participated in the Jade Pavilion gathering and even proclaimed himself as a king in Black Wind Ridge. He was once a country's teacher. How can he be a dragon? At this point, Anai Quan seemed to have some understanding. He pinched his chin and said with a smile, This old man understands. This might be Dragon Island's trick, but it doesn't matter. Whether Xiao Hua is a dragon or a human has nothing to do with my ancient Bell Mountain. Xiao Hua can't be a dragon. He can only be a human. Peng Jun stood up from the ground and spread his wings. This is a lot to do with this old man. Bai Bo, Bai Qing said with a smile, you're in charge of the Sky Dam water prison. Tell me, is Xiao Hua a human or a dragon? Hehe, Xiao Hua is naturally a dragon. Bai Bo said with a smile, Father, is it because of this that you hurriedly called your daughter over from the Sky Dam water prison? When did this old man call you over? Bai Qing was stunned and asked back. Damn bitch. Bai Bo immediately realized and cursed. She actually dared to scheme against me. Who? Bai Qing asked curiously. It's that human descendant who took father's Monster King token and went to interrogate Xiao Hua. Bai Bo said while gnashing her teeth. Li Jing? Why is she? Bai Qing said curiously. Before Bai Qing finished speaking, another exclamation came from outside the Monster King cave. King, Yaoji, not good. Something big happened in the Sky Dam water prison. Not good. Hearing that something big happened in the Sky Dam water prison, Bai Bo didn't wait for the water clan outside to finish speaking. She turned into a 5-colored rainbow and flew out of the cave. Bai Bo was naturally worried about her lover. Bai Qing, Peng Jun, and Ni Quan, the 3 monster kings, were even more anxious than her. Seeing that Bai Bo had just left, the 3 monster kings activated their abilities and instantly overtook Bai Bo and rushed towards the Sky Dam water prison. Chapter 4356. Fairy Jing took the 5-colored beast skin and flew into the heavenly dam water prison. Her heart was beating wildly, and she silently recited the speech she had prepared beforehand to deal with the patrolling beasts that appeared at any time. However, what surprised her was that when she landed at the bottom of the fire pillar, the back of Xiao Hua's head was faintly visible in the flames. Not to mention that shelled beasts, even the other patrolling beasts, were nowhere to be seen. Fairy Jing naturally didn't know that it was Jade Wave's appearance that made these beasts flee in panic. When she faked the Demon King command, those fleeing beasts still hadn't returned. While she was secretly delighted, she landed in front of Little White Dragon. Little White Dragon had just been burned by the 5-colored flames of the fire pillar and was currently powerless. He didn't raise his head at all, thinking that Conch Girl or Jade Wave had returned. He mercilessly roared, Scram! I'm not in a good mood right now. Fairy Jing's peach blossom-like face paled. She whispered, Xiao Hua. Little White Dragon was stunned. He slowly raised his head, looked at Fairy Jing, and asked curiously, So it's you. Why did you come back? Little White Dragon immediately came to his senses and replied with a wry smile, Although I gave you that jade eye, I have never seen that thing before. Because it's used to refine magic treasures, I had you look for it. Even if you personally came to ask me, I wouldn't know about that thing. Xiao Hua, do you still resent me? Fairy Jing didn't pay attention to Little White Dragon's explanation. She only stared blankly at Xiao Hua's familiar face and asked word by word. No, absolutely not. How could Little White Dragon find trouble for Xiao Hua? He replied without hesitation. Then why did you? Fairy Jing still asked with hidden bitterness. Little White Dragon was now an old dragon that could move unhindered among flowers. Under Jade Wave's torment, he already had a silent response to this question. He hastily replied, I didn't ignore you. It's not like I don't know you. Why don't you think about it? Where is this place? Can I rashly say that I know you? Can I protect you? When Fairy Jing heard this, she couldn't help but smile. This smile was truly like 100 flowers blooming. Even the resplendent sparks in the surroundings couldn't compare. To be able to hear those words from my dear Xiao before leaving this filthy world, this concubine is already perfectly satisfied. Although Fairy Jing's tone was exceptionally calm, her gaze was fixed on Xiao Hua as she muttered to herself, This concubine has lived in this world for so long. Apart from Xiao Hua, this concubine has never met another person as pure as Xiao Hua, who is as pure as crystal. That day, it wasn't that this concubine was unwilling to accompany Xiaolang, but this concubine wasn't worthy of Xiaolang, and this concubine was afraid of bringing trouble to Xiaolang. What this concubine didn't know was that this concubine had brought so much trouble to Xiaolang. This is all this concubine's fault. This concubine is willing to make up for this mistake. I only hope that Xiaolang can forgive this concubine. With that, Fairy Jing stretched out her hand and touched the back of Little White Dragon's head. Her cherry-red lips touched Little White Dragon's cheek. Damn it! Little White Dragon was dumbfounded. He hurriedly retreated and shouted, Don't, I'm not. Fairy Jing's face turned even paler when she saw Little White Dragon running away. She bit her lip and said, Darling Xiao, I know you won't forgive me. But, although this concubine didn't do it on purpose, it's still the biggest mistake this concubine has made in her life. Moreover, this concubine is very regretful right now. This concubine shouldn't have drunk that unruffled water. Let me ask you, what is love in this world? It makes people want to live and die for it. How can a love that doesn't even care about life and death be washed away by a handful of water? If it wasn't for that unruffled water, this concubine would have been able to think of you day and night for the past 200 years. That would have been such a beautiful thing.
That
Little White Dragon opened his mouth and wanted to transmit his voice. However, he was suppressed by the pillar of fire and couldn't use his dragon power. He could only shout, I'm really not Xiao Hua. The real Xiao Hua is your lover. I don't know where he is. You still won't forgive me. Fairy Jing's face was ashen. She stared blankly at Little White Dragon's familiar face and said, Although this concubine has already drunk the unruffled water, your voice and smile have already been imprinted in this concubine's heart. Seeing your face, this concubine's heart is beating wildly. Damn it. Little White Dragon anxiously said, I'm imprisoned by the Demon King's pillar of fire and can't return to my original appearance. No need to say any more. Fairy Jing said faintly, Xiaolang, whether you forgive me or not is no longer important. While speaking, Fairy Jing opened her mouth. Pooh. The heart shell fell into the air. The moment it appeared, it immediately emitted a 5-colored halo. This light was like Fairy Jing's heart that was crying blood. It flickered and condensed into 5 colors that fell from the heart shell. Pooh. Fairy Jing didn't stop at all. She opened her mouth again, but this time, she spat out a mouthful of essence blood. When the essence blood landed on the heart shell, the 5-colored halo of the heart shell suddenly retracted. A blood-colored heart shell emitted a blood-colored brilliance in the air. What are you doing? Little White Dragon didn't understand. Fairy Jing ignored Little White Dragon and raised her hand again. Wung. A nascent soul wearing soft armor rushed out of the door with an even smaller sea pearl in his hand. Wung wung. The blood-colored heart shell emitted a huge rumbling sound before finally exploding with a bang. When the blood-colored heart shell exploded, Fairy Jing couldn't help but moan. Even Little White Dragon's heart was broken. Woo. After the blood-colored heart shell exploded, Fairy Jing's nascent soul opened its mouth and sucked in all the blood mist. Boom boom. Thunderous sounds flashed around the nascent soul. The strange runes on the heart shell appeared one by one. However, the runes weren't 5-colored, but blood-colored. The nascent soul crazily expanded in the blood-colored light and the thunderous sounds. In an instant, it was more than 10 feet tall. Xiaolang. Fairy Jing suddenly cried out, This time, we will be separated by life and death. Even if I have thousands of thoughts, they will all turn into a flower in the yellow springs. I will have no one to complain to. Damn it. Seeing the nascent soul emitting obscure waves, Little White Dragon suddenly realized and said in surprise, You want to break the seal? You are really too whimsical. Even Jade Wave doesn't dare to break this seal. You think you can break it? You are throwing away your life for nothing. Xiaolang, this is all I can do.
Goodbye.
Fairy Jing's eyes were filled with tears as she said sadly, I finally understand the thoughts of the sister in your story. I only want to reincarnate and not be a descendant of the demon race. I only want to be a clean person. Even if I don't have any cultivation, I only want to live a quiet life, Roar. Little White Dragon angrily roared. His entire dragon body powerlessly struggled within the pillar of fire, but the flames within the pillar of fire didn't even move. Little White Dragon shouted, "Idiot, don't do anything stupid. I'm really not Xiao Hua. I'm Xiao Hua's good friend. My name is Little White. Really. Unfortunately, at this time, not to mention Little White Dragon couldn't restore his dragon body. Even if he did, how could Fairy Jing still believe him? Sometimes, when the fake is real, the real is fake. Pooh. Fairy Jing took one last look at Little White Dragon's face, her eyes filled with reluctance. Then, she slapped her head. Blood splattered, and Fairy Jing's entire body collapsed. Following the collapse of her body, that several zhang long nascent soul fell with a loud rumble and merged with her flesh. AI, damn it. Little White Dragon powerlessly raised his head and muttered, "How should I explain this to Xiao Hua?" Weng. After Fairy Jing's nascent soul merged with her flesh, her nascent soul released a powerful rumbling sound. Her pressure quickly broke through from the nascent soul realm to the out-of-body realm, another infatuated, brainless woman. Little White Dragon looked at Fairy Jing's nascent soul and shouted, "Even if you give up your life, you are only at the edge of the 5th level. How can you break the seal with this kind of shallow strength? You should hurry and stop. Although you are only left with your nascent soul, you still have your life. With Xiao Hua's ability, it's not impossible." Unfortunately, before Little White Dragon could finish speaking, the blood-red runes around the nascent soul burst open again. Fairy Jing's nascent soul spirit body collapsed, and the entire spirit body crashed into the ocean pearl that had been hovering above the nascent soul's head. Weng. When the nascent soul rushed into the ocean pearl released an even louder rumbling sound. Waves of dark green water rushed out from the ocean pearl and fell into the air. Beautiful scenes of the sea appeared in the light. There were waves of blue waves, or fishes leaping and birds flying, or thousands of layers of snow, or thousands of miles of sea. Previously, it was still hot, but now it was instantly cool. Moreover, when the waves of water fell into the fire pillar, the fire runes and 5-colored halos on the fire pillar all retreated, and the fire pillar's trembling was still frozen. Gotcha! The moment the waves of water spread to the fire pillar, a blood-colored crack appeared on the ocean pearl. The entire ocean pearl shattered, and the blue water mixed with the blood runes turned into monstrous remorse and crazily crashed into the fire pillar. Boom! Inside the heavenly dam water prison, the entire fire pillar was trembling. It was as if the raging fire had succumbed to Fairy Jing's remorse. Wherever the blue water touched, a loud rumbling sound could be heard. The red fire pillar was frozen inch by inch. What was special was that at the bottom of the pillar of fire that was suppressing the Little White Dragon, the threads of blood dyed the entire pillar of fire. The threads of blood were mixed with a 5-colored halo, and they quickly seeped into the pillar of fire. The immovable restriction that was like a mountain suddenly showed signs of loosening. Roar. Little White Dragon was overjoyed and let out a roar. The dragon energy in its body suddenly surged. Boom. The fire pillar suppressing Little White Dragon was slowly lifted up by Little White Dragon. The entire heavenly dam water prison was trembling. Chapter 43-57. Damn it! How could such a large commotion from the bottom of the fire pillar not attract the attention of the demon race? The armored demon appeared out of nowhere. Seeing the situation, he couldn't help but curse. His body quickly swayed, and his armored demon body suddenly grew to several hundred feet in size. The shelled demon didn't fly to the fire pillar. Instead, it went straight to the top of the mountain. Its entire body spun quickly. The 5-colored halo around its body shone brightly. It turned into a pillar of light that fell into the fire pillar. Woo! Where the 5-colored halo landed, the fire pillar responded. All of the 5-colored runes flowed on the surface of the fire pillar and rushed down the fire pillar. As the runes rushed in, The flames and runes that had been frozen by Fairy Jing's sea pearl began to jump again. Break. The shell demon had just calmed down when he heard a dragon voice coming from below the pillar of fire. Immediately after, countless strands of fire-type origin energy rushed down the mountain. A ball of golden light quickly appeared in the crimson and dark green light. Damn it! The demonic beast could feel the power of this golden light and could not help but grumble bitterly. Just as it was about to activate its divine ability, boom! At this moment, the golden light suddenly exploded and the entire fire pillar started to collapse from the bottom. At the same time, the mountain peak of the Heaven Dam water prison started to shake violently. Humph. Just at this moment, a cold snort came from the distance. Following this sound, a five-colored light pillar more than 100 feet large smashed into the fire pillar. Rumble. With a series of rumbles, the five-colored halo fell from the surface of the fire pillar to the bottom. Wherever the halo passed, whether it was the green water, the blood strands, or even the golden light, all of them were destroyed as easily as crushing dry weeds. The entire fire pillar instantly stabilized. My king! The armored demon race was overjoyed as it fell to the ground and shouted, "This little one deserves to die. Fuck." Just as it was about to break free, the shackles that had just been broken through came crashing down again. The little white dragon sighed as its body was once again suppressed by the pillar of fire. However, just as it was about to be suppressed, the little white dragon's eyes suddenly lit up as it hurriedly opened its mouth to release a ball of soul strands. A series of crackling sounds rang out as a faint human figure that was invisible to the naked eye fell into the little white dragon's mouth. Damn it! Seeing that the fire pillar had finally stabilized and the entire Heaven Dam water prison was no longer shaking, Demon King Bai Qing's figure appeared from the five-colored light pillar. Although the Demon King's expression couldn't be seen clearly, his tone was abnormally angry. It was clear that he felt like he had lost face in front of the other two Demon Kings. Behind him, the Demon Kings of Shrouding Sky Ridge and Ancient Bell Mountain also revealed themselves. My king, spare me, spare me. The armored demon race was shocked as he fell to the ground and trembled. Just now, this little one was a bit lazy. What exactly happened? Bai Qing's Yuanshan swept across the Heaven Dam water prison and asked coldly, "This?" The armored demon race hesitated for a moment before replying, "It seems like... Hearing this, Bai Qing flew into a rage and shouted, "When I was suppressing Xiao Hua, I made it clear that Xiao Hua was extremely important and could not be out of your sight at any time. Now that he almost escaped from the Heaven Dam water prison, how dare you say it seems like? Don't tell me you don't care about this prince's words?" Woo. Following this rage, on one side of Bai Qing's shell, a five-colored light pillar shot out from between the runes and grabbed the armored demon race. The demon light around the armored demon race dimmed instantly, and cracks appeared on a shell. My king, spare me. This little one is just... The armored demon race was really wronged. He hurriedly tried to explain, but at this moment, behind Bai Qing, another five-colored light flew over. An even angrier voice shouted, "Damn it, I just left for a moment, and it actually caused such a big commotion." Boom. A fist-sized light pillar shot out from the five-colored light and blasted into the armored demon race's body. The cracked shell instantly shattered, and the five-colored light pillar pierced through. This daughter is wrong. I fell for the human race's trick of luring the tiger away from the mountain. Father, please punish me. Bai Bo's figure landed in front of the Heaven Dam water prison and immediately knelt on the ground to beg for forgiveness. Bai Qing naturally would not punish her daughter. She snorted coldly, "Yaoji, you are not strict enough with your subordinates. You must learn from this lesson and not be too kind to your subordinates. You must know that the human race has a saying, kind people are bullied and kind horses are ridden. Your kindness is weakness in the eyes of your subordinates." "Yes, my king, Yaoji understands." Bai Bo did not dare to say another word. "By the way, Brother Demon, I will go down and take a look later." Bai Qing ignored Bai Bo and said,
Hee.
Peng Jun laughed and said, "We will wait for a moment. Brother Bai, please set up the restriction first." "Brother Peng, you must be joking," Bai Qing said a little awkwardly. "Previously, it was because we were too suspicious that we made such a big joke. At this point, if I set up the restriction again, wouldn't that be slapping my own face? 2 demon brothers, please." Then, the 3 demon kings landed at the bottom of the fire pillar. Bai Bo also followed nervously. When she saw the blood splattered around the fire pillar, the bloody clothes on the side of the stone wall, the remains of Fairy Jing's body, and the 5-colored beast's skin on the ground, Bai Qing already understood a lot. A tentacle grew out from her demon body and took the beast's skin. Then, she released her primordial thought and looked at Little White Dragon. "Xiao Hua, was it Li Jing who risked her life to save you?" "Little shell." Little White Dragon looked coldly at Bai Qing and replied disdainfully, "Aren't you very resourceful? Don't you already know? Do you still need to ask me?"
Hee.
Bai Qing didn't seem to be angry, as though Little White Dragon had already scolded her 1,000 times. She only smiled and said, "Do you know, other than this Li Jing, there are some humans who walk into a trap and get killed by my subordinates every day. They seem to be here to save you. Think about it, it's just telling this king about the origin of that thing. It won't harm you at all, nor will it affect you in any way. Why don't you say it? Today, Li Jing died. Tomorrow, there will be Wang Jing, Qin Jing, and all the girls who like you will die in front of you. Do you think this is interesting?"
Little shell.
Little White Dragon laughed. "I have told you countless times. I don't know the origin of that thing at all. Li Jing's jade eyes weren't given by me at all. Where do you want me to find that thing for you? Besides, there's a saying in the human race. It's called, 'Death might not be scary, but it's scary that death is as light as a feather.' Li Jing died for the love at her heart and for Xiao Hua's survival. Her death is as heavy as a mountain. She died without regrets. This kind of death can move heaven and earth. Damn it." Bai Qing, who had been cursing Fairy Jing countless times, heard Little White Dragon's words and felt endless jealousy in her heart. However, what was extremely rare was that other than this jealousy, there was another feeling in her heart. She's just a descendant of the human race. She overestimated herself. If she dies, then so be it. Bai Qing keenly understood the meaning in Little White Dragon's words. She waved her hand and said, "From what I heard, the jade eyes she gave to me weren't given by you? Then you aren't Xiao Hua?" "Who said I wasn't Xiao Hua?" Little White Dragon looked around, his gaze sweeping over Peng Jun, and Ai Quan, Bai Qing, and even Bai Bo. A faint smirk appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Each and every one of you has asked this poor Taoist for several hundred years, and one of you even checked with a soul tool. This poor Taoist is naturally Xiao Hua." Enemy. Seeing Little White Dragon smirk, Bai Qing cursed inwardly. All the bones in her body went limp, and the jealousy in her heart instantly disappeared without a trace. "Xiao Hua, are you a human or a dragon?" Peng Jun restrained his temper and asked, "What do you think?" Little White Dragon didn't answer. Boom! Bai Qing's tentacle of light waved, and the several hundred feet tall pillar of fire instantly became transparent. Little White Dragon's body was revealed in the flames. Immediately, the entire pillar of fire shook again, and a ring of fire fell from above. Right around Little White Dragon's body, crimson-red flames mixed with a 5-colored halo were born again. Roar! Little White Dragon roared, and that human-shaped shell was burned into a huge dragon body. Sigh. Following Peng Jun's sigh, Bai Qing raised her hand, and the pillar of fire disappeared. Little White Dragon's body was covered in flames. Ha ha ha. Little White Dragon's painful expression was somewhat ferocious. He seemed to know that he couldn't hide it anymore. While groaning, he laughed and said, "Ridiculous 3 little things, really pitiful. It's just a truth, and I hid it from you for hundreds of years. You say I'm smart? Or you're stupid? What do you 2 demon brothers say?" Bai Qing ignored Little White Dragon's sarcasm and turned to ask Peng Jun and Ni Quan. Ni Quan's expression didn't change, and he replied indifferently, I don't care. A dead Xiaohua is more useful than a living Xiaohua. Also, I suggest that you don't need to deploy guards around Bai Qingyu anymore. Let those humans with evil intentions come in. We might as well hold a banquet and catch all of them in one fell swoop.
Ah!
Beside him, Bai Bo was shocked and hurriedly asked, Father, you want to kill Xiaohua?
And
Bai Qing looked at Bai Bo dotingly and responded, waving her hand to signal her not to speak. Peng Jun's expression was a little ugly. He thought for a moment and shook his head. Since this guy is from the dragon race and not Xiaohua, I have to report to Tsang Yuetian first. I hope Brother Bai won't make a move before I get the news from Tsang Yuetian. Of course. However, I don't know how long Brother Peng will need. Bai Qing knew that this matter concerned Tsang Yuetian, and he had to report to Star Concealing Lake, so he asked a few more questions. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.